call this council meeting on July 14th to order. Call the roll.
Can you speak into the mic?
Can you hear me?
No.
It's not my fault.
Are you using the right one? Yeah.
Okay, well, it's your fault. You guys left this thing over here by me. I'm right-handed. Okay, so we'll call this meeting to order. If the clerk call the roll.
Counselor Corn? Counselor Foster?
Present.
Counselor Arnold? Counselor Oropesa? Counselor Halverson?
Here.
Counselor Hildenbrand?
Present.
Counselor Moore? She's online. Give me just a
She's
second.
online. Okay, Council Moore's online.
Okay.
Here.
Thank you. Counselor Perry is absent.
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. We can hear you now. Counselor Corn, Best?
Here.
Counselor Sanchez? And Mayor Jennings, you have a quorum.
Here. Okay, so we have a pledge of allegiance and a invocation. Juan, would you lead us in the pledge of allegiance, and Christina, would you lead us in the invocation? Is that all right?
Our heads to pray. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for bringing us all together. I ask that you grant us the knowledge we need to make decisions for our community. I ask that you look over those who are in need of your guidance tonight. Dear Lord, I just want to thank you for all that you have done to help this town prosper. And in Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilman Oropesa and Councilor Arnold. Thank you very much. Welcome. Please, I hope the body would keep your thoughts for Councilman Perry and Councilor Council Lady Moore. They're both having a little tough road right now health-wise, so just please keep them in your thoughts and prayers, and them and their families. And next we have for the minutes from the June 9th meeting, and the agenda and consent items from the June 9th meeting.
Excuse me, Mayor.
Yes.
It's the approval of the agenda.
So on the approval for the agenda. Well,
Mr. Mayor,
yes, Councilman.
I was just kind of curious. We seem to do appointments at the very end. They're, at least to my knowledge, fairly non-controversial. I'd like to move them up if we could, and I also want to have a discussion on consent items.
Okay.
What are you going to do about moving your appointments up?
Okay, on the appointments,
Item number 32.
33. I was going to ask that we remove item 33 from today's agenda. And I would ask that we remove that, and if there's any objection, we'll do that. Is there any objection to removing item 33 from today's agenda? Okay, seeing none.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
can I go ahead and make the motion to accept the agenda with all the recommendations?
Yes, I was going to have you do that. I was going to, I think Councilman Corn had some other items that he wanted to bring up on this agenda. And then,
Once the agenda is voted on, then there can be amendments to the agenda to move things around, or remove, or take out, or whatever.
Excuse me, Counselor, can you speak into your mic? I'm sorry.
Hopefully I got the right one.
All right, thank you.
Chairman, I,
However you want to do it, Mr. Mayor, it doesn't matter to me, but
well,
I've got several items on the consent agenda. I just want to talk about the consent agenda. But if we can do that after we approve, then that's okay too.
that's fine.
You know, if you put those numbers, because I am gonna take one out myself, if you tell me which ones you want to take out of consent, I can make the motion, during the motion to take those items off and place them on the regular consent.
Mr. Mayor,
Well, okay. Councilman Corn,
can we deal with item 32 first?
32 or 3?
32. It's your appointments. And like I said,
Well, I had,
generally non-controversial. We can get them done. I don't see,
item 32, that's correct. Okay, there's
See
two,
either one of the
32, okay.
appointees.
Yeah, okay.
thank you.
Would you want to approve the,
I just think about moving it somewhere. And then on the consent, we'll go ahead and get on to that. Couple of things. We have a history of just approving the consent items when we approve the agenda. And I don't think that's exactly appropriate. I think when you get the consent items, that's when it's appropriate to discuss particular items you want to pull off and then vote on the consent items, not just vote on it when you approve the agenda. And that's one of those deals that I learned, got refreshed, I should say, at the meeting with the, in Las Cruces several weeks ago now. And I just, that's kind of a point of order.
no, I mean, the items on consent should be approved together individually, but you can do them all at once, but if you want to take one off, then it would stay in its regular place of business.
Yeah, but
After, and all the ones that are consent would go away.
you just take, whenever you get to that item, then you ask if there's anybody that wants to pull anything off and discuss it, and then vote
correct.
the rest of it in, and then continue on with your discussion.
That's right. That's the way we did it in the legislature, but,
Yep.
so,
I had the same training ground, Mayor.
yeah.
So if you'll do that, then and you move 32 up, because it's non-controversial, we can get it moved pretty quick, I think. If that's what you'll do for me, then I'm done.
Well, if we would, it would be the intention of the chair to, I don't think there's any opposition to moving item 32 for those two, for the moving of Mr. Hitchcock and Mr. Kunkel to the appointment to the Airport Advisory Commission. I don't think there's any problems in moving that earlier in today's agenda. Does anyone have any objections to that?
That's
Okay.
what I'm inquiring about,
And
Mr. Mayor.
so, and then, if there's no objection, we would move that up. we can move that up, well, non-action items, that's probably, that wouldn't be the first action item, I guess, or do you want to go, so we can do that after the non-action items, and to item 3A.
That'd work.
Is that all right?
That worked for me.
Is that all right with the staff?
Mayor, if you do
Yes.
decide to reorder or change things, we would ask that you give us a recess so that the city clerk can reorganize the PowerPoint based on what changes you make to the agenda if you're going to change the order of things.
She's quick.
This isn't a big change.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Okay. I don't know, they're not really large changes, but if that needs to be done, does that need to be done? Okay. Well, then, Councilman or Presser, if you would,
Excuse me, Mayor. Can you just please clarify what we're doing? What changes we're making?
it would be, on the approval of the agenda, would be making item 32, placing that either as maybe 3A. Is that all right? On page 2, you'd put item 32 there, and we would remove item 33 from today's agenda. And then on the consent items,
25A?
those would be taken
There.
when we get to consent. After item number 6, we would start with consent items there. And the ones who wanted to remove those items from that motion would be made at that time to move them. So that would keep them all in pretty much in the same order. Is that okay? Does it work?
I have a question for the city clerk. Do you have those consent items already in the PowerPoint? Okay, cool. Thanks.
Counselor, but I would say that if you wait until that you get there, then we'll have to take another recess once we find out what you're actually taking off consent and put it into the, so, if you do it all now, then we can change the PowerPoint now with everything you want to do. But if you wait and tell us down the road what consent items you want to take off, then we'll have to take another recess and pull those because they're not in order. Keep the consent items at the end of the PowerPoint so that they don't get in the way while we're doing the regular items.
Okay, well,
Technology's not our friend today, Mr. Mayor.
yeah, so, okay, well, then the items I have to be removed from the consent calendar are items 8, 9, 11. Is there any other?
10.
And 10.
7.
7. Well, so much for the
Well,
consent.
well, we just,
One item. on
there's
the-
one item left.
So let's just not have a consented item and just keep going. That way we don't have to hold up.
That won't take, we just,
All it takes is one to object to one of the consent items and you're done.
you're done, yeah. So,
I concur with his desire. So we'll
well,
just
then
go
if we
ahead.
don't do a consent item, then they're all still in order?
Yes, sir.
Right, but we still have to move them. They're all at the end of the PowerPoint. We'll have to move 32 up to the front and then take all the consent items and re-put them back in order into the actual PowerPoint, you see? It won't take that long, you just need like 5 minutes, but we will.
Okay.
do it.
All right.
Well, then, now we have, so the only items left on consent will be items 7 and 12, is that right?
No,
No, 7.
just 12.
Just 12? Okay. Okay, so. And you'll take off 33, okay,
Mr. Mayor,
yes.
over here. If we could also, please remove item number 25, the declaration of emergency.
Oh, for
When the
the,
governor
Yeah, for
came
the-
down, she provided more money than what the value of the declaration would be. And so there's no need for Item number 25, the declaration of emergency.
So remove that item.
Yes, sir, please.
I'm sorry, you told me that and I didn't write it down. Sorry.
Move that item?
Yes.
Okay,
You don't
Mayor?
need it. She got it, she gave them all
On
the
the
money.
consent agenda, we have items 7 through 24. Those
Through-
are all on consent agenda.
Through 24. Oh, these are all, the rest of them
The rest of them are the consent, yes.
Minutes.
are the leases, the T-hanger leases?
Yes, sir. They're on consent.
Okay, well, then we'll just take 7 through 12 off, 7 through 11. 7 through 11, yeah,
And you'll leave the rest of these on the consent?
yeah.
Okay.
I want a motion to do the consent items. I don't want this just, well, we approved it during when we approved the agenda. That's just not kosher in my book. I don't know if you want to, Mr. Mayor.
So is there any opposition to taking items 20, up through, item 24? Huh?
No, 7 through 11.
Well, the others are still on the consent item.
That's right.
You said through 24, that's all.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying, okay,
7 through 11.
okay.
8, 9, 10, and 11. 12's fine. 15
Okay.
19's fine.
Okay,
Item number 20's fine. That's not on the consent agenda. Consent agenda.
yeah. So everything, so we're just taking items 7 through 11 off the consent, and all the others will remain on the consent calendar.
Desire. And I think Councilman Oropez's desire too. You can ask him, he's sitting down there.
Is that your desire? Okay,
It'll be up to the council, however they vote,
Oh, yeah.
to accept the agenda however we present it. But just for a better clarification, before moving to approve the agenda, I want to make sure I understand where item 32 is going to be placed.
3A?
25?
no. Well, I had said 3A before, but I don't know where, did you put it to 3A?
3A.
After the presentations and before the public hearings, right?
Right.
Right.
Yeah. So it'll be 3A, I guess.
Just a second. Okay, Mayor, just to clarify, we're removing item 33. 32 will be 3A. And then we're moving consent items 7 through 11 and putting them on the regular agenda.
Correct.
So if somebody can make that motion.
And
Yep,
the removal of 25 as well.
25.
Okay.
Mayor, at this time, I move that we accept the agenda for this meeting, the city council meeting Thursday, July the 14th, with the following changes to it. We will make item number 32 will become 3A and will be placed right before 4. We we will take items from the consent agenda number 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 out of consent and put them on regular agenda. And then we will remove item 33 and item 25 from the agenda. 33 was the addendum. So that one's being removed. So that is my motion.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilman Orpresa and
I'll
seconded by
second.
Council Lady Arnold. If the clerk could call the roll.
Counselor Corn? Counselor Foster?
Yes.
Counselor Arnold?
Yes.
Counselor Oropesa?
Yes.
Counselor Halverson?
Yes.
Counselor Heldenbrand?
Yes.
Counselor Moore?
Yes.
Counselor Corn Best?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay. Next, we have for presentations of the Parks and Recreation Proclamation. Mr. Burrs. Did you want to read it, or?
It's your presentation, so if you can read it, please.
Okay. Yes, Mr. Burris. Yep. Okay. Let me read it here. So. Wait, you might use the podium there, and then everybody else can hear you if you don't mind. You can come to the, well, that's fine. Okay. You want to introduce everybody or the podium?
You speaking to that?
Yes, sir. Hi, I'm Colette Hall, Recreation Director. I've got Tammy Lahr with me. She is the aquatic supervisor. I've got April Hunter with me. She is the supervisor at the Adult Center. And Juanita's with us. That's our leader. And
And yourself?
I already said
did you? Jim Burris Parks.
Okay, Sam, we got it all down. So if you don't get this, you can't go to your meeting on Monday, is that right?
That's how it works, yeah. That's right.
Okay. Proclamation, whereas Parks and Recreation is an integral part of our communities throughout this country, and including Roswell, New Mexico, whereas Parks and Recreation promotes health and wellness and improving the physical and mental health of people who live near parks and encourage physical activities by providing space for popular sports, hiking trails, swimming pools, and many other activities designed to promote active lifestyles. And whereas Parks and Recreation increases communities' economic prosperity through increased property values, expansion of the local tax base, increased tourism, and the attraction and retention of businesses and crime reduction. And whereas Parks and Recreation is essential and adaptable infrastructure that makes our communities resilient in the face of natural disasters and climate change. And whereas Parks and Recreation areas ensure the ecological beauty of our community and provided a space for children and adults to connect with nature and recreate outdoors. And whereas the United States House of Representatives has designated July as Parks and Recreation Month, the City of Roswell recognized the benefits derived from parks and recreation resources. Therefore, I, Timothy Z. Jennings, Mayor of the City of Roswell, New Mexico, do hereby proclaim July as Parks and Recreation Month. And so, thank you all. So.
Mayor, councilors, I want to say one thing. I'm very proud of everybody that works in these departments. You know, a lot of them aren't seen, You know, the Parks guys get 685 acres they take care of. You don't see them. They pick up lots of trash. These guys are working with all the children. You know, they're trying to keep people busy, away from their telephones and their iPads and the rest of that stuff, and come up with ways to try to keep the children outside and the adults. So you got to be very proud of them, and I am. So thank you.
Mr. Burris, I want to say we're thankful for you as well as you are for your staff. And we thank you for your service to this community. Well, thank you.
Next, we have a presentation from Main Street Roswell. And it's a presentation on the Main Street Roswell organizational and annual report. Yes, ma'am.
Hi. Thanks for having me. Am I supposed to? Okay, I've never done this before, so thanks for having me. Mayor Jennings, City Council. Attached in the reports is the work that Main Street has done over the past year. Our organization continues to help the downtown businesses and property owners to prosper and continue to their recovery from COVID shutdown and limitations. We have a very dedicated board of volunteers who spend countless hours and much of their own money to make Roswell a better place to live and to improve the vitality of our downtown district. This has been especially important this past year with no executive director for a large portion of it. We have seen new energy in the downtown district since the lifting of COVID restrictions, and we know that several businesses benefited from the many relief efforts offered at the state and national levels. We continue to encourage the stakeholders to reach out when they have a specific need that we may be able to help with. In the past year, we have helped facilitate additional funding to businesses by connecting them with the funding sources available to the Main Street programs. In addition to the PPP loans that we believe were all forgiven, we know of at least 2 businesses that have qualified for grants that we have helped facilitate with a value of over $9,000. We've also recently been notified that we are accredited through Main Street America and New Mexico Main Street, which allows us to be of even more value to the stakeholders and the city of Roswell through the use of many of the services offered by these groups. We believe our organization is an important part of Roswell, and we're requesting that the city of Roswell consider adding Main Street Roswell as a line item to the budget in the amount of $60,000. Thank you for your consideration. I guess we'll go through the slideshow. Okay, maybe. Okay. Our mission is to build upon Roswell's historic past by creating a sustainable, cooperative, dynamic downtown district. We want to thank and support thank you from all the support from the city that we get. Downtown Roswell is the heart and soul of our city. You guys probably have seen this. I don't. The district we have recently increased to expand to include the Great Box grant area, the big project that is going on right now. It is, so we have a little over 2 miles of businesses in our downtown district. Recently, Barbara Gomez and I attended the Main Street Now convention in Richmond, Virginia. We attended various classes, all very neat things that we were able to learn from them. I've never been, very new kind of in this role in this organization. I've been with it a long time, but just barely became president in February, so I'm all very, very new. I'm very sorry. But that conference was incredible. It was 3 days of trainings and just very, very helpful. Some of the projects that we do are we buy the flags that the city installs and stores, the American flags, and we also supply the little alien eyes that go on the lamppost that actually people really like. One of our other big things we do every year is a community planning day. We get the Keep Travis County Beautiful. They provide the soil and the plants. Keep Roswell Beautiful has provided the mulch, and people from the community provide the hours to go down and plant. And then the businesses that the plants are in front of provide the water. They water them as often as they need, or most of the time they do. We try to definitely advertise that you gotta water your plants. It's hot in the summertime. So during the Christmas time, we have quite a few activities. Of course, we decorate those lamp posts with the little Santa hats and the ribbons. We have a tree lighting ceremony, kind of just a fun thing to kick off the season. We also do the downtown lighting of all the trees. We hire a company, Jesse McDaniel, to put up those lights and take down those lights. It takes him at least a month to do each of those, but when they're up, they're very beautiful. Get a lot of comments on those. And then, of course, the light parade, which this last year we did a static parade. We didn't want to shut down Main Street, and so we held it in the DeBremen parking lot, and the turnout was amazing. It was very cool. But we'll probably try and go back to an actual parade, because the people that came out, it was just overwhelming. It was too much. And so it'd be easier for everyone to be able to enjoy it if they were just sitting on Main Street. So we'll probably do that again. We also have lots of educational opportunities that New Mexico Main Street and Main Street America help provide to us. Such as marketing, meeting with Google. These are all free classes that we can have access to, and we just ask the merchants downtown what they need, and we look it up and get it done. We also have on our website a brief listing of properties available. Just kind of an overview glance. If someone is interested, we can go and say, yes, go look and see. We are trying to keep that as updated as we can as to what's available. And then once someone wants more information, we'll reach out to the owners and try and get them in contact to get that space utilized. Coming up next, we have the Chili Cheese Festival. It's a huge hit for local, the dairies, and it's the farmers, the ranching and dairies. And we encourage the downtown shopping with our scavenger hunt. The businesses really enjoy that as well, getting locals into their stores. One of the big projects that we're working on continuously, and we're about halfway to sending the truck up for another load, but is the bottle caps to benches. And there's a lot of people that have really picked up on doing that every week. I would say that there's new people interested in starting this. So overall for the community, this is really great, but seeing these ones that have been placed down on Main Street is very nice. I saw people utilizing them through festival all weekend, and so having that nice place to sit has been wonderful. We also do the Shop Small Business Saturday. We are a community chamber, a community champion or something like that? Neighborhood champion, thank you. And so American Express sends us lots of goodies, and then we give those to the businesses, the small businesses, to help them also promote themselves for the small business Saturday, which happens the day after Black Friday. So big corporations get big Black Friday, and then all the small businesses get Shop Small Saturday. And so it's neat that Main Street has that ability to be that neighborhood champion. The farmers market just kicked off last week. It's going to be every Saturday through October. And that will depend on growth, depending on how long into October we go. That the farmers will let us know as that comes along. But we're willing to do it. It's got a great turnout, homemade crafts and fruits and vegetables from everybody. The local, and then you get other locals come in and buy it, and it's a lot of fun. As far our social media, we have over 9,000 followers on our Facebook page and over 1,200 on our Instagram. So we do have a really good reach, and you can see the age range of that it's all over the board. So we also have a stakeholders Facebook page that, along with our monthly meetings we have with them, we have good information like this. So one of the merchants posted this on the page saying, hey, this guy he harassed an employee, damaged some goods, keep an eye out for him, and the other merchants downtown can see this easily on their Facebook. You get a notification, someone posted something, they could be on the lookout for this guy and make sure that, they're staying safe. There's other things we post on there as well, as far as we try to have them post, hey, I've got this special going on, or other things like that. That way when they've got a visitor or just a customer in their store, they say, hey, I kind of want something like this, where do you think I can go? They can share the information. Two stores down, this business has this. So we have that Facebook page, and they all can mingle from there. And that's about it. I did want to say upcoming projects is, of course, the Great Blocks Grant, and then we are going to be working on updating our master plan. And that's it. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. Would you like to introduce your other
Yes, I
Main
would.
Streeters here?
I would. Okay, so Molly Boyles, she is the vice president. Kim Woods is the treasurer. Peggy is a board member, and she heads up the farmers market. And then Barbara Gomez. Did I say it? Do I say it? She is our new executive director starting August 1st. So we're excited.
Thank
We
you.
finally have an executive director on the books.
Thank you. I got to tell you that those benches are really nice, and it took a long time to get all those lids, but they turned out really well. And so thank you all, and thank you for all you do. I think if there's one that would be proud of that bench was Dusty. He'd think that was the best thing in the world. Thank you all so much. Okay, next we have item 3A, item 32.
Counselor Foster wants to speak.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Barry. I didn't.
I just wanted to know the status of our Great Blocks project. I heard back in March that we were going to have an announcement, or they were going to make the grant announcement in June, and so this is July, so.
The deadline for the grant application and for authorization of funding is, I believe, July 29th, July 29th. It's already begun. It's being worked on. We have been in contact with the state, with New Mexico Main Street. The funds have already been set aside for us, allocated for us. It's just a matter of getting the paperwork in, and we should be able to begin phase 1 of that project later this year.
All right, thank you. I yield.
July 29th, yes. Yeah.
Okay. Moving right along here, when we get to item 3A, I would just, no offense, but I would certainly hope everybody understands that we are talking about item 32 is the appointment to the Airport Advisory Commission for Mr. Hitchcock and Mr. Kunkel, not the Parks and Recreation Commission appointment. So the body knows this is for the Airport Advisory Commission. As close to the, that's fine.
Yes,
Yes, sir.
good evening, Mayor and Council. You are correct. Apologize, that's a error there. This is, we're asking you to consider the appointments of the mayor for the Airport Advisory Commission. There's two positions open, and the mayor has recommended John Hitchcock and Bud Kunkel. I would suggest that you could vote on them as a block if there's no objection. However, if you would like to separate them, in case you would like to vote differently on each one, just let everybody know, and then you can know how to proceed.
Councilman Corn, do you have a preference?
I'll just move that we appoint Mr. Hitchcock and Mr. Kunkel to the Airport Advisory Commission.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Councilman Corn and a second by Councilman Arnold, Council Lady Arnold. Is there any further discussion? For those who might not know, Mr. Hitchcock was very instrumental in getting American Airlines here. He and Mr. Armstrong did a great deal of work on that. Mr. Kunkel is just retired, but he's a local appraisal specialist, so he should be able, hopefully he'll be able to help a number of people in their leases and whatever we work on the airport, because he has a great deal of knowledge in business property valuations. He was used quite a bit by all the local banking facilities in our area. Any further comments? Seeing none, the clerk will call. Oh, yes, sir. Councilman.
Make sure we understand the appointments, because on the screen, we've got Parks and Recreation Commission appointment, and they're noting John Hitchcock and Bud Kunkel, but our agenda indicates that this is for the Airport Advisory Committee or Commission.
Yes, sir, it's an error, and I apologize, we missed it.
Seeing no further comments, clerk, would you like to call the roll, or do you voice vote, okay?
Pardon me, voice vote. Voice
Voice
vote
vote?
is
Okay.
okay.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Opposed?
No, with an explanation.
Okay. We'll have, so we have Council, Lady Cornbest, or, votes no. And the others, what is that? 7 to 1? No, 6 to 1. 7 to 1. Okay, 7 to 1, they're approved. Council, Lady Cornbest to explain her vote.
By the New Mexico Municipal League, we don't have to explain our vote, but I choose to. I choose to explain it because Bud Kunkel has already been on the Airport Advisory Commission. During a meeting, he stood up, walked out, and refused to do a resignation letter. I'm not sure that's the type of person I want in one of our committees that just walks up and stands up and walks out because he's frustrated with what's going on. I'm not sure how John Hitchcock's renting a tea hanger, how that will affect that, but I'm not comfortable with him having a tea hanger and on the advisory commission. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, next, we go to the next item is public participation. Okay. So next we have, these are public hearings, fact-finding fact-finding body. We only can consider the evidence presented in the hearing. And, well, that's a little early, I guess, because we probably should, before we do public hearings, we should have presentation. That's all we can do is present, consider the evidence presented in the hearing and observe procedures necessary to preserve all rights of all involved to be heard and present evidence to obtain a fair decision. The final decision may be subject to appeal in district court, and the city staff may act as advocates, so all members know that. And we have on today's public list, we have, on a non-agenda item, we have Jesse Gomez, and we have people, Jonathan Finnig to speak on item 5, and Eric Lujan and Indy White to speak on item 6. So, Mr. Jesse Gomez?
We're going to hold the public hearing?
Mr. Gomez, are you still here? Mr. Gomez, last time? Okay. Okay, so next we'll proceed. I assume it would be best, since we only have 3 items to we'll do item 4 and have the public member speak the people who speak on that at the time, and then, is that agreeable? Then we'll do item 5 and have Mr. Finnig speak on item 5, whether he's for or against it, and then item 6 we'll do and have Mr. Lujan and Indy White speak on item 6. So now we're in the order for public hearings.
Excuse me, Mayor.
Yes.
For the record, Counselor Moore is off of go-to at 6:49.
Councilman Moore is off? Okay, thank you. Okay, item 4. So we have Councilman or Presser, are you doing?
I'll do it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At this time, I move to hold a public hearing and consider approval of a governmental liquor license for the city of Roswell, application number 1226042, located at Joe Bauman Stadium at Cokefield, 1000 South Post Street in Roswell.
Okay, we have a motion to approve to have a public hearing on this license, to allow for a liquor license at Joe Bowman Stadium. Is there anyone that would care to speak?
Second.
Oh, we have a motion by Councilman Orpresa, second by Councilman Cornbest, excuse me. And so now on that order of business for discussion, or is there anyone that would care to present this on behalf of the licensee, or just, go ahead, Mr. Parker?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. This is a governmental liquor license for the city of Roswell. It is a new license. It will be located at 1000 South Poe, which is Joe Bauman Stadium at Coke Field. And it is appropriately zoned as C2 for those types of activities. It is intended that, I believe, upon issuance of the liquor license, it will be leased potentially to the invaders so that when they do games out there, they can sell different kinds of adult beverages. This is the map that will show you that it is not within 300 feet of a school, church, or military facility. And as I said, we have checked with Planning and Zoning Department, and it is appropriately zoned for the activity. And it meets the requirements of New Mexico statute in not being within 300 feet of those prohibited locations. And the only other consideration that for you to make is whether this particular location for liquor is uniquely detrimental to the health, safety, and welfare of the community, as opposed to just generally being opposed to liquor. With that, I'll stand for any questions, and of course, if anybody would like to speak on behalf or against.
We have no one that has signed up to speak for or against it from the public. So
Sure, but you
for
don't have to
council-
sign up to speak for a public hearing.
Oh, you don't have to? Oh, well, okay. Is there anyone in the public that care to speak for or against in any way, shape, or form? Okay, seeing none, any councilman have any questions? It was my understanding that this would be in an enclosed area on those premises. I don't know that it's not written in here, but I know at the baseball stadium, that was my understanding at that time.
Yes, and in order to get your liquor license, you have to be able to establish the boundaries of where the liquor will be served as part of the application process. You can't just say a field, right?
But as such, when we have this license on that facility, if that is used for a rodeo or anything else, or is this only for the stadium? Or will it, can it be used for any other facility on that property? I mean, like at the rodeo?
Well, I believe that of course, the stadium can be used for any appropriate use, but we do lease it during parts of the year to the Invaders baseball team.
Yeah.
And they use it, and they have an exclusive use, I believe, for that period of time when their season is on. And I think the idea here is not that the city is going to be serving liquor there. The idea is to lease it to the Invaders. And so when they're doing their baseball season, they would have the ability to serve alcohol. But if we lease it to them, then we wouldn't be able to use it. We would have transferred it, you see.
Okay, so it would be a sole source, and that's,
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, it has to be within the parameters of the fence within there. So any use that's in the ball field area could utilize this liquor license. If the rodeo's over on the fairgrounds property, you're not able to use that liquor license over there. For those of you that may remember some of the background on this, we attempted to get this license before COVID hit, and we had some challenges within COVID to get all the paperwork in and everything. Mm-hmm. This license would be during the Roswell Invaders season will be leased to them. If there's any other uses on the ball field for that, we would be able to lease that license to whomever that is utilizing that space. And so that's the intent of the use of that license. But I would say that certain activities that would happen in that field space could effectively utilize the license, as what you're asking. So.
yeah. So this would entail anything from the bleacher areas, anything inside the fenced areas, goes all the way out to center field, left
Yes,
field,
sir.
all the
Yes,
way
sir.
back, anything in that
Yes, sir.
facility.
Anything within that fence, because that's how the Roswell Invaders sell tickets and such. So yes.
But anybody who wanted to have a large picnic on that area could release it, as long as it's enclosed in that area, they could lease the license. So, or wouldn't have to, they could just rent it or lease it or whatever the city decides.
Yeah, and we could do that. And the bigger challenge that we had is that the Invaders were having trouble getting the picnic license, which is having somebody come out there because they don't sell enough to make the picnic license affordable for the vendors that were doing that. So we could do this as well too for those purposes.
Okay. Any further comments? Any questions? Let's see, so we have just Juliana left on the phone. So, well, all those in favor of adopting this application, or, well, we just have to hear it, so it's done. Approving, do we approve it?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so all those in favor of approving liquor license application number 1226042, located at the Joe Bowman Stadium Field on Coke Field, signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? So for the record, we'll have 2, 4, 6. We have 7 aye votes and no nay votes. Okay, next we have zoning case number 22-020. And this is a request for CVE North America for a zone change to allow the construction of a community solar array on property owned by Chad and Missy Gallagher at 1612 East Second. And so, Mr. Mavers.
Mr. Mayor, before we
No.
start with this one, I would like to ask our legal department clarification or legal opinion, because my wife and my daughter own property associated or connected to this property. And so I don't know if it would be wise for me to recuse and abstain, or
Counselor, I think that, I don't believe that that would create necessarily a direct conflict of interest, but I believe that your instinct is correct. In order to avoid any appearance of impropriety, it would be, the best practice would be to recuse yourself from the vote.
and so if I recuse or abstain, do I have to leave the building, or can I stay here?
You don't participate in the debate and don't vote, but I don't think you need to necessarily physically leave.
Okay, so Mr. Mayor, at this time, I would hope that somebody else will make the motion for this item, please.
Okay, thank you. Councils will take note on someone who would like to make a motion one way or the other. Okay, let's see, do we want to have discussion on the item first before?
No, I'll make the motion first.
Okay,
Mr. Mayor, I move that we hold an appeal hearing and vote on whether to uphold or rescind the Planning and Zoning Commission's approval of zoning case 22-0200ZOC, a request by CVE North America for approval of a zone change and conditional use permit to allow for the construction and operation of a community solar array on property owned by Chad and Missy Gallagher at 1612 East 2nd Street.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Okay, Mr. Mavers, would you explain?
Mr. Mayor and councilors, we're going to deviate slightly from what we had originally intended to do with this, because we have some good news. Ought to make the decision-making a little bit easier. Subsequent to the filing of the appeal and the posting of the agenda, we met with both the appellant and the applicant on the project, sat down and had a wonderful discussion, revised the conditions of approval to the satisfaction of both parties. And I believe both parties are here tonight. I believe Mr. Fennig is in the audience. There he is. And then I believe Mr. Winan is online. Is Carson Winan online?
Yes, I'm here. Hi, Kevin.
All right. What you all have in front of you, we'll go ahead and go through the presentation very quickly, but what you have in front of you that was just passed out is a copy of the revised conditions of approval and emails from both Mr. Winan and from Mr. Fennig stating that they are in fact in agreement with the revised conditions of approval, and they would like to go ahead and allow the project to move forward. So the original application was made back on April 5th of 2022. CVE North America was the applicant. They were wanting to build a community solar array on property located at 1612 East 2nd Street. There's actually two pieces of property that extend all the way from 2nd Street on the north back to Alameda Street. The zone change was required on the property in blue. The conditional use permit required on the entire property with both of the stars there. Just a basic layout of the community solar array. Again, this is conceptual. Final details are being worked out by the city engineer on how to put everything together. Okay. The concerns were expressed at the Planning and Zoning Commission by some of the adjacent property owners. We had 2 letters of protests that were filed, as well as a short list of names in a petition. We accepted those. We read those into the record. They became part of the record. The conditions of approval that were modified generally follow issues related to site access, security, maintenance, the perimeter fencing, the type and style of fencing, as well as the height, and landscaping in order to maintain some nice visual appeal in the neighborhood. Grading, drainage, flood protection was a big item that was discussed extensively after the fact. And then, of course, the operations, and then what happens at the end, decommissioning, deconstruction. Okay. Again, on June 28th, the Planning and Zoning Commission did hold a public hearing, took testimony from all parties, but at the end of the meeting did decide to vote 7-0 to approve both the zone change and the conditional use permit for the property. The clerk did receive 2 days later, in a very timely fashion, an application for appeal of the zoning case. It was from Jonathan Fenning, who's the owner of the property located at 1706 East 2nd Streets, expressing the concerns that I previously addressed. On July 5th, an appropriately mailed notice of protest hearing was sent out via regular mail as well as U.S. mail to the appellant as well as to the property owner and to the applicant. Okay. Additional copies of the notice of appeal were forwarded via email to everyone else to make sure that they got them in a timely fashion. On June 8th, just 2 days later, staff met with the appellant, Mr. Fennig, who is here in the audience, to discuss the conditions. Revised conditions of approval were prepared and presented to both the appellant and the project applicant for review and approval. The previous Planning Commission action on this, they did vote unanimously, 7-0, to approve the zoning cases. Staff recommendation, of course, is to hold this appeal hearing tonight and then vote to uphold the Planning and Zoning Commission's approval for 22-020 ZOC, which was a request by CVE North America for approval of a zone change and a CUP to operate the 2.7 megawatt community solar array with subject to the revised conditions of approval. I'll stand for any questions.
So now, Mr. Finnegan, everybody's happy. Is there any further comments or anyone else to be for or against this in the audience? Seeing none, do we have a motion? Oh, come ahead. Well,
yeah, after we met with the city and amended a lot of the conditions of approval, me and the community that I represent.
Excuse me.
Yes.
you have to identify.
Can we get your name and address?
I'm sorry, Jonathan Finnig, and 1706 East 2nd Street. Yep. After we amended the language in the conditions of approval, I and the community that I represent came to an agreement with CVE North America, and at this time we are going to go ahead and withdraw our appeal to this project. So, and I stand for any questions, I guess.
Okay. Any questions of Mr. Finnig? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And so are we on a motion by Councilman Hildebrand and a second by Councilman Corn? The clerk will call the roll.
Counselor Corn? Yes. Counselor Foster? Yes. Counselor Arnold?
Yes.
Counselor Halverson?
Yes.
Counselor Hildenbrand?
Yes.
And Counselor Cornbest.
Yes.
The motion passes.
By a vote of 6 in the affirmative, none in the negative, the motion to adopt zoning case number 22-020 for on 1612 East 2nd has passed. Next we have zoning. Next we have a zoning case number 22-016, and this is for Pure Life, which is a variance to the distance requirements for cannabis-related businesses and a zone change on 323 and 325 South Main. Mr. Mavers.
Good evening again, Mayor and council members. Zoning case 22016 is a request for a cannabis establishment at 323 and 325 South Main. It is a request for a variance of distance requirements for cannabis-related businesses, a zone change to CCAN, and a conditional use permit with the corresponding conditions of approval to operate an adult use recreational and medical retail cannabis establishment at 323 and 325 South Main. You can see the site is appropriately located. It is in the middle of a C2 zone. This is a new facility. This is not an expansion or a rollover of an existing medical cannabis facility, but it is appropriately sited, so it is eligible for the zone change. You can see will be a rebuild or revitalization of an existing structure. We like to call that adaptive reuse in the planning and zoning world, but they are taking over an existing building at 325 South Main. Okay. The proposed cannabis establishment, again, a ground-up commercial facility. They were issued a vertically integrated cannabis establishment license by the state on January 27th of this year, so they are subject to all of our new zoning and development codes related to cannabis. Okay. The variance, this is the most important part again, like all the previous ones, there is a variance request. Pure Life has requested a variance to the distance separation requirements specified in our zoning ordinance. Our zoning ordinance specifies a minimum of a quarter of a mile, 1,320 feet, between cannabis establishments. Oso Cannabis Company, which was approved, I believe, last month or the month before, is approximately 733 feet away. Now, Oso was the one that was, they were a rollover, they were an existing medical cannabis. They were allowed to continue in operation, but they are 733 feet northwest of Pure Life. The zone change, 323 and 325, located within the C2 district, so it is eligible for the commercial cannabis floating zone. Pure Life, like many of our cannabis applicants, was very good about providing us with a great deal of information so that we could move through the process quickly. The Planning and Zoning Commission, prior to June 2022, the Planning and Zoning Commission did receive one written protest letter. It actually came from Chavez County. There was concerns about proximity to a daycare center that is eligible for federal funding, and they were concerned about the separation and whether or not we needed to have the 1,000-foot help me out here.
Drug-free school zone.
Yeah, there was the drug-free school zone. Okay. Parker did review the protest letter, and between he and I, we have come to the conclusion that the state has put in appropriate provisions that allow us to go down to that 300-foot level. It's always been 300 feet relative to cannabis, and so the federal restriction of 1,000 foot does not apply in this particular case. We are recommending that the City Council consider approval of this case, which includes a variance, a zone change to CCAN, and a conditional use permit with the corresponding conditions of approval to operate an adult use retail cannabis establishment at 323 and 325 South Main. And we stand for questions.
Okay, any questions for Mr.? Yes, Councilman Foster.
Thank you, Mayor. What is the distance from the Head Start? Is it?
It's right at 400 feet, I believe. Was it? How far?
Property to property is what I'm interested in.
The measurements, the difference in the measurements is that with respect to schools, daycare centers, and others, we measure to the property line because you will have children playing outside. It is technically the entire site is considered part of the facility. I do not have it in front of me here. No, it should have been part of your packet.
That's what I was trying to find it real quick, and then.
Yeah. It said it was on.
212.
In the second paragraph.
I yield. That's what I wanted to find out. I got it. 360.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Councilman.
May I?
Yes.
I have a question for you, Mr. Mears, and that the original city ordinance is 1,320 feet, did you not say, from an existing facility?
Correct.
So give me the logic of why we passed that in the ordinance and why you now feel it's okay that we violate that distance. Trying to understand why we put that in at 1,320 feet and now we want to waive it. So tell me, and this body up here, why that's appropriate.
Staff is not recommending approval or denial of anything. We're only presenting the facts. Every project has the opportunities to submit a variance, whether it's a cannabis project or a land development project or anything else. In this particular case, they felt that this location, the applicant felt this location was appropriate. They filled out the paperwork, asked for a variance of our distance setback requirements. It is up to the city council to determine whether or not that's appropriate.
And then and I wasn't at the P&Z meeting, what was there, I mean, give me some fact about why they felt that was okay to bypass that ordinance that we have.
I don't know that there was any particular or specific information given at the Planning and Zoning Commission about why they made the determination was appropriate or not. Again, with these types of cases, the Planning and Zoning Commission not being the final body, the one that makes the final approval, they know that no matter what they say or do, it is going to move forward with in this particular case. Recommending approval was just an option, of course, to get it to move forward so that you all could make the final decision.
Yeah, but they still must have had some basis, but they didn't explain their basis for that.
I would have to go back and look at the tapes. I do not remember them making any specific claim one way or another relative to the distance separation.
Okay, thank you.
Any further, Councilman Cornbass?
I just want to make a comment. Kevin, when we sat for 7 months, maybe, trying to figure this all out, our whole goal as a committee, or whatever we were, was to give the council full okie dokie or no. That's what our whole situation was, and it was case by case by case. We can look at it, we can read it, we can change it, whatever it is, that was sent up to us so we can do case by case by case. So each case is different. If this one's a little closer than the others and we feel that it's okay because of the traffic and we understand all of that, that's fine. If we feel we need to stick with what we put in the ordinance, it's all case by case because this is a moving animal at this point. So, Kevin, you have a comment on that? Am I right or am I wrong?
No, Counselor, you're absolutely correct. Because of the sensitivity associated with cannabis and the new cannabis industry, the previous direction that staff had received was to develop an ordinance that would allow the city council to look at these projects on a case-by-case basis to determine whether or not siting was appropriate, whether or not the location was the type that we wanted, whether or not you would allow things closer together or further apart. The idea was to give the city council ultimate authority, but also ultimate flexibility to do what they felt was right. If the city council believes that 733 feet is too close, then that's up to you to make that level of determination.
Well, and I feel, I've sat and read this information, and like you said, Kevin, they gave us more than what we asked for. Mm-hmm. I'm sure that they run their business this way, so they are going to take care and not mess up. If it was another establishment that they had to go back and forth 3 or 4 times to get all their information in, they weren't organized, they didn't have their lawyers in line, so forth and so on, I would have reservations about that. I don't have reservations about this one because they are businessmen and they are here and they can talk for themselves, but they're businessmen and they are capable of handling this business. We did this because we didn't want Joe Blow to come in a gas station and put up bars and say, okay, I'm going to sell now. So that's why we gave the council ultimate choice to agree or reject to each case that comes before us. Thank you.
Thank you. Christina, Council Lady Arnold, excuse me.
I found I was actually looking for something specific. I found it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further
I do have
comments?
something.
Oh, we have,
Mayor,
yes. Councilman Moore.
so,
Or
Halverson.
Halverson, I'm sorry.
Mr. Mavers, I noticed you contacted several of the neighbors in I'm guessing some of the downtown merchants. I'm looking at the names here. Did you receive any opposition to this being that close to the downtown area? I see the one from the county about it being too close to the Head Start.
No, we received no written or verbal communication, either one, from anyone in the downtown business district.
Okay, because I was okay with the existing ones with the medical cannabis, approving them, but I'm a little worried about this one being that close to downtown and to the Head Start. So, okay. I was just checking if you received any opposition. Thank you. I yield.
Okay, next, we have, is there any further questions from council members? We have two individuals signed up to speak on item 6. Indy White. Mr. White.
Before we give testimony, we'll want to swear in the witnesses for this.
So if Mr. White and Mr. Lujan, if you would stand up and raise your hands, and the clerk will swear you in.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. White.
Yeah, my name is Indy White, I-N-D-Y, last name White. You need address as well?
Please.
Okay, 9800 Montgomery Boulevard Northeast. That's Albuquerque, New Mexico, 87111.
Thank you.
Mayor, City Council members, members of the public, I really appreciate this opportunity to speak before you this evening. I hope that I can clear up some of the concerns. I believe that the Zoning and Planning Commission had some similar concerns a couple weeks ago that, there is a reason that they did vote unanimously to approve, and I hope that I can do a similar level of presentation to give you some ease as to why we are looking to move into that location. A little bit about myself. My name is Indy White. Like I said, I'm one of the owners of Pure Life. I'm born and raised here in New Mexico. I went to UNM for undergrad. After that, I joined the Air Force, where I worked on ejection seats on the F-16. After that, I went to law school in St. Louis, became an attorney. I had an opportunity to move back to Albuquerque to work on this application 7 years ago for Pure Life. It was a medical cannabis company at the time. The state was issuing some new licenses. With my new legal career under me, I was hoping that I could help that application out. We did apply, and we received one of the 12 licenses 7 years ago to be a fully integrated cannabis company. Actually, I started that company with a local Roswell, New Mexican by the name of Jason Bowles. Jason Bowles is a good friend, and he helped me start this company together with a couple other partners. Jason is born and raised in Roswell. I think he even went to Roswell High School as well. What's that? Daughter. Oh, yeah. So we started Pure Life 7 years ago. From then, we really bootstrapped our way. We have 12 current operational dispensaries around New Mexico. We have 4 cultivation facilities. We have a kitchen, and we have an operational lab. We have 310 employees around the state, and I am very proud of some of the benefits that we can offer these employees. We have full health benefits, dental benefits, vision benefits. We offer a matched 401k for the majority of our employees. The vast majority, those are full-time employees. In the last 7 years, we have not received a single fine or penalty. When we were regulated by the Department of Health, now we're regulated by the CCD, Cannabis Control Division, under the Regulatory and Licensing Division. Here in Roswell, we have purchased this building, or we've been leasing this building for over a year. We picked this building specifically because we knew of the zoning regulations surrounding the downtown area. We did not want to be in that downtown area. The reason that we are here today is the variance, because another dispensary was approved a variance in the downtown area. We are 700 feet away from a dispensary in the downtown area that last month was approved variance. We've spent over $100,000 in rent so far and equipment at that facility. So this would be a large financial hit to us if we were not able to open this facility like we originally planned on. We were working with planning and zoning, and we were very up to date on the planning rules when we selected this building. We are looking to hire 12 full-time employees here in Roswell, again with the same benefits and competitive wages that I mentioned before. We do have armed security guards at every single building that we have. We currently have a budget of $150,000 a month of just what we spend in armed security guards at every single one of our facilities. Roswell would be no different. We also provide background checks for all of our employees. The one thing that I did want to touch on before I finished was the county of the Chavez County letter that we received with our proximity to a Head Start program. I respect the letter. However, I do fundamentally disagree with the argument. If we're speaking just in New Mexico alone, I found just by Google searching that there are 4 dispensaries within 1,000 feet of a Head Start program. This is just Head Start. We're not talking about other schools. Most schools receive federal funding in some form or fashion that are also under the rule of 1,000 feet from the drug-free school zone. Head Starts are no different. I think there's just some frustrations or maybe worries that they're fully federally funded. But there is a dispensary in Portales that's 470 feet away from a dispensary. There's a dispensary in Los Lunas that is 720 feet from a dispensary or from a Head Start program in Los Lunas. In Clovis, New Mexico, there's a dispensary that is 741 feet from a Head Start program. In Santa Fe, New Mexico, there's a dispensary that's 697 feet from a Head Start program. While we are within 1,000 feet of that Head Start program, I do not believe that that is a valid argument or one reason that our license or request for a variance should be denied. There has not been a single school or Head Start program that I could find in the entire country that has lost any form of federal funding or grants simply because of their proximity to a dispensary. So again, I respect the argument, I just don't agree with it. I'm really looking forward to opening the store up here in Roswell. I really would like to give these employees the benefits that we offer that I don't think is typical in this industry, and I'm really prideful that we're allowed to offer those. Again, I really thank you very much for your time. I can take any questions if you have them, but that's pretty much all I have to say this evening.
Thank you, Councilman. Are there any questions of Mr. Lujan? Seeing none, thank you, Mr. Lujan. Mr. Andy White?
I'm White. Yeah.
You're Andy White, Mr. Lujan. Well, questions of Mr. White? Okay, there's not any there. So, Mr. Lujan?
4811 Hardwood Drive, Albuquerque, New Mexico, 87111.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor. I kind of got to get used to that. I'm used to calling you Senator back in those lobbying days. I want to just comment on Councilor Best and kind of follow up where she went with this. As I lobbied on behalf of several cannabis organizations, whether it was medical or now recreational. And going to your fact, Counselor, the Cannabis Control Division under RLD is so strict right now with the regulatory process of obtaining the licenses as well as overseeing them and controlling them and how they are being used. The separation between the two licenses, whether it's medical or recreational, is obviously established. This Pure Life being grandfathered in and being allowed to be licensed medically and recreationally. But also, the difference between the licenses, they don't give you, as they do a liquor license, 3 strikes, and then they pull your license. It's a 1-strike deal. And it doesn't matter what the violation is. It could be a small violation, or it could be a major violation like selling to a minor. So it's very restricted as how the state's doing this, and they've currently hired several retired police officers and other agencies, fire department, retired fire department employees as well, to oversee the control of the licenses. And it's become a very strict process. Now, yes, has the state gone out of control with issuing licenses? Yes, it has. But this is a firm that has established itself over the years and is going to do what Councilor Best described, and that is being respectful to its community, giving back to its community, not only through the GRTs, but economically through the job process as well. So I just wanted to reiterate that what Councilor Best went with and say that, yes, we are going to be a good partner with the community, and we're going to be respectful to our neighbors and everyone else in the community as well. And with that, Mr. Mayor, councilors, we stand for questioning.
Thank you. Councilors, does anyone have any questions of Mr. Lujan? Okay. So, seeing no further questions, we have a motion by, we need a motion by Mr. Perry. He's not here. Would you care to make a motion for this, if you would, please?
I'd like to make a motion to uphold zoning case 22016 Pure Life, which includes the variance to distance requirements for cannabis and related of approval in order to operate an adult use recreational and medical retail cannabis establishment at 323 and 325 South Main Street.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Council Lady Corn Best and a second by Council Lady Arnold to approve zoning case number 22-016 on 323 and 325 South Main. If the clerk could, I think we better call the roll because he'd like to explain. Call the roll.
Counselor Corn?
Yes.
Counselor Foster?
Yes.
Counselor Arnold? Counselor Oropesa?
Yes.
Counselor Halverson?
Yes.
Counselor Heldenbrand?
Yes.
And Counselor Best? Yes. Your motion passes.
Okay, by a vote of 6 in the affirmative and none in the negative, zoning case, pardon, 7? Oh, excuse me. 7 in the affirmative, zoning case number 22-016, 323 and 325 South Main has been approved. Yep, thank you all very much. So, yep. Okay, now we go back to our items number 7. I guess, is that the way you're set up? Now it should be back to item 7. Consider the approval for the Roswell Volunteer Value Program, Councilman Oropesa. So,
Mayor, I move for consideration of approval of the Roswell Volunteer Value Program implementation.
we have a motion by Councilman Oropesa for approval of the Roswell Volunteer Value Program implementation by Councilman Oropesa, seconded by Council Lady Arnold. Is there any discussion? Yes? No?
Good evening, Mayor, members of the committee. I apologize, Ms. Lay is out this week, so I'm going to be presenting this information to you. This is the volunteer value program that the committee kind of came up with based on some needs and some hearing from the community. It went through 2 general service committees. The first month, they reviewed the packet and had some additional questions about using the word volunteer. Legal team has has reviewed it. We checked with the state, and they indicated that the word volunteer does have to be included in it if these volunteers are to be covered under our insurance. So, number one, the city must set a cost for city facilities use New Mexico anti-donation clause. So when somebody would like city services, there has to be some give and take with that. Fact number two, the city, we're short staff, we're all kind of stretched out, and so this will allow us to have a win-win solution for organizations and for the city. Currently, I believe there were 60 open jobs when this presentation was put together. Fact number three, volunteers feel a great need, and they have their time is valuable. Most organizations do require some hours of service of some kind. Our independent wage sector for volunteer time is about $28.54. Kathy Lay did her homework. And then fact number four, local groups often need to use city facilities, but they have very limited budgets, whether they're a nonprofit organization or other members of our community. And so they have people who are willing to volunteer that also need service hours. Again, this is the city needs extra hands. It's a fair value for volunteer time. Groups need facility uses, and then there's a required cost for most of our facilities. So it would be a win-win situation for the city and for other organizations. Volunteers, this is kind of just a little bit of the same thing of what we talked about, but to give you an idea of the program, we would have a list of facilities or places that they can utilize their hours, and then in turn they can kind of use it as a checkbook of banked hours towards a facility cost of service. The group that would be assigned to work that fills the need for the city for extra hands, I would use like UFO Festival as an example. We had a group from the Assistings League that came out and helped us in the Kids Zone, so their hours worked would benefit them for future uses of various facilities throughout the city at no cost because they use their time. It's kind of a win-win for both organizations. They would complete the task, and then they would fill out a service form so that it's tracked and that the hours are verified so that we have good documentation that there's no anti-donation. It would be verified by Kathy Lay, who is our volunteer and outreach coordinator. One of the questions that came up in the General Service Committee was, can an individual from the community volunteer and donate their hours to an organization? And we would be more than willing to do that. The forms in your packet, there's some sheets in there, and Kathy does an amazing job at really tracking and measuring data. The group would apply to participate, and then the volunteer value account basically would be arranged and set up by Kathy. There's a couple of forms. They would just be completed and returned so that the process is really easy. The next line item is that the hours are applied to the group account as that credit, and the value per hour is $25. Again, looking at the volunteer labor cost hours. The cost of the facility is used and deducted from the group volunteers account, basically, and then participating volunteers do have to be 18 years old. So, for example, the Assistings League, most of them were under the age of 18, but they had a adult lead who came out with them. Their hours counted towards that organization, and so we want to make sure that we give the youth that opportunity to have sometimes real life work experience, but also credit their organization. Individuals who are not groups, they can apply to participate and again donate their hours. And then individuals do not receive credit for personal use, only for a participating group. So that's really important. There are a couple of background checks that we do go through because a lot of our volunteers will interact with children, whether that's at the recreation center, at the library, or museum, or at the zoo. We want to make sure that safety is in mind for all of our participants in different programs. This again went to General Service Committee. It was recommended 3-0 on June 22nd, and I'm here to answer any questions that I might.
Questions, Councilman Orpresa?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a note
for the council to consider is that even though it was approved 3-0 at the General Services Committee, I voted for it to have this discussion with the entire council, because I'm not truly sold on this program. And the main reason that I'm not sold on the program is the value that we are putting on the volunteers that work. We're essentially paying them $25 an hour, when we actually have like 121 individuals in our staff that make less than $15 an hour. And so I in my opinion, I think that if we're willing to pay volunteers $25 an hour, I think it would behoove us to look at raising the salaries for those that are less than $15, at least to bring them up to $15 an hour. Because essentially, and this is what I argued at the thing at the General Services, even though they're called volunteers, and I hear the argument that we have to have the word volunteer there, but it doesn't make sense to me, because these individuals are getting compensated for the work that they get. And so when you bank $25 an hour of work that you supposedly volunteered for, you're actually taking it away from the city when they rent the convention center or any other facility. And so I am not sold on the fact that this is a good program if we're willing to pay more to the volunteers than we are to our regular staff. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Council Lady Best, Corn Best, excuse me.
So this is I call this skin in the game, because we can't hire enough volunteers to do the work that we need to do that needs to be volunteered for. And our volunteer people, I don't know, as a volunteer person, a lot of times I feel used. I don't get a thank you, I don't get a pat on the back, whatever, but I'm willing to work. This is giving them the opportunity to work for something for their group. If it's this room for the night, all the power to them. That's why this facility is here. Sometimes I have a problem that some of the counselors want free stuff, but yet when we get people that want to volunteer their time and we give them the opportunity for a little bit of a trade, I have a real problem with that, because it doesn't make sense. First you want this free or you want this here, but yet now we have the opportunity to get our citizens a little skin in the game for a little bit of pat on the head. And I'm sure that our other employees understand this, and I'm sure some of them, I think we have 615, or I'm not sure how many employees we have, but I'm sure some of them are in a baseball group or a Boy Scout group, Girl Scout group, whatever the case may be, that would love to volunteer their extra time off of work to get hours for their venue. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we have Council Lady Arnold, please.
So I just like to say that I really love the concept, and I appreciate the city working to be innovative to solve this issue. I know it's actually been on the forefront of concern for many of our citizens, so I actually really appreciate that you guys have spent time to at least try to find some type of middle ground. I think this is brilliant. Very good. Thank you.
Any further comments? Yes, ma'am. Can you tell me if has anybody looked at what this does to athletic facilities or anything else? Is that, I mean, there's certainly, they would all qualify as well, I would assume.
To athletic facilities? Yes. It would be any city facilities that we have that want to be a part of that program.
So is there, if the sanitation department decided if you had somebody with a CDL license that they could drive a grappler truck and drive that to work off for something, if they want to do that at a different facility, I mean, that's fine. Could that be?
It's more specialized for like large scale type of events where we would need additional hands and additional manpower. I guess our most recent example would be, I'm going to use the assisting leagues again because they came out and they helped us work the kids zone. And so for their hours and time bringing their students out, if this program had been established, we could then give them those credit hours. It's not payment, but the credit hours towards that group, because they were very beneficial for us having those extra hands to help us corral the kids and move them around, because we are a small staff. And even with our community member support, helping in the Galacticon area here at the convention center, that's kind of the model of this. It's for those large activities. So for example, our next big activity is National Night Out. And so we are looking for volunteers to help us with, we'll have PD, we'll have fire, EMS, the different law enforcement agencies, but then we'll also have another kid zone area where it's really nice to have those extra eyes and extra hands when you have large masses of audience from the community. So if we had volunteers for that, they could bank those hours in their organization's account. And then let's say they wanted to rent a ball field for a fundraiser or something like that. They would then be able to use their hours to offset some of that cost.
I'm just curious, like at the soccer fields, if you had, on the soccer fields, the way they were designed was to move the field 50 feet or 75 feet every year. So when you stripe it, then you would never get places in the field that were extremely hard in front of the goals and areas in front of the goals that wouldn't have any grass or anything like that. Had we done that, the city done that, we would have a lot better fields, than we've had. So,
right.
But I'm just saying, so if a group came in and said, we'll stripe, or the soccer association bought a machine to stripe the fields and to move them, then they could get credit, so the city doesn't charge them for use of, for the children on their fields?
No, so this really wouldn't apply to the sports associations and leagues because we already have an MOU agreement with those association and leagues. This is more for like a nonprofit organization like Kiwanis, Boy Scouts of America. I'm trying to think of some of our other organizations. Yeah, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, the difference is that we have agreements with all the sports clubs for the use of the field during their season. If they were to ask to do something like that outside of their season, we could constitute as a volunteer type event. I also wanted to address the thought about the grappler service. I appreciate that effort. We need to help. The challenge we have is that we have some restrictions as far as the use of the equipment within our insurance as well too. They could actually assist off the truck. If that was what we chose to do, I would say that they would not be allowed to actually drive it based upon that volunteer usage. So, underneath the responsibilities of the leagues on the sports fields, there are certain requirements. The relationship's a little bit different within the contractual time frame. Outside of that time frame, if they wanted to come out and actually do that extra work, I think we could designate that as a true volunteer event. And make it in that way in order to help fix that. That would be the discrepancy or the difference between the sports associations and these volunteer type events.
And I look, I don't know what they pay an hour how much credit they give you at the jail. When you're at the jail, when you go pick up trash and everything else that's around after a soccer field or after a soccer game or whatever. Right. Is any research or anybody know whether this will cause any problems if we're giving them $10 a day credit for $20 a day credit on their fine for picking up trash and getting out and doing that instead of $25 an hour.
Certainly. And Mr. Mayor, the jail program's a little bit different, and I'm glad you asked that question, because I wanted to make sure everybody understood as well too where this this number came for the volunteer value program. That is off a volunteer national site that establishes volunteer hours. This is the amount that any volunteer that would work for any nonprofit or anything, they could discount this on their taxes as well too. So rather than to pick or choose a number that we could not justify, we chose to follow the format of what this agency does. It's a nonprofit agency that establishes the value of the volunteer time across the nation, and that's how we chose that number. I would say there is a difference between the restitution of the fines and what these hours are. I think one of the differences is that the value of this volunteer time does not go to the individual. So it is not paying the individual this $28. The value goes into this pot for the whatever the organization that they are serving for that as well too. And so those are probably two of the things that I've heard in the conversation I wanted to kind of address. But we have not looked at to say, you know, based upon how this program is, to how it compares out. Not at this time for that. But that is how we chose the number. It's not an arbitrary number. It is a number that has been based upon the science or the information that this agency has done across the nation.
And the other, is there any stipulations on wage and hour laws or anything of the age of children who can volunteer for this? Or
We've set the low end at 18 years of age in order to get credit within this program. You know, there are opportunities for volunteers that are younger than 18, but they have to be under parental guidance. There's certain things that they're allowed to do and not allowed to do. So for the sake of the program and to keep it, to get it actually started and learn exactly if it's doing what we want it to do, we set that minimum age at 18 in order to have the value for that. We appreciate all the younger ones when they're helping, but we set that age at 18.
So the assistings wouldn't qualify? Well, just a few, just if they have assistings that are in that program, as I understand, from like 16 to 18 or something, you know, young individuals in school, and but I mean, I didn't when I graduated from high school, I was 17, and I didn't know. That's what I'm.
So you do have that within there, that if they're within a.
If they have a.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Mayor, Council, if they have a parental or guardian supervisor or a sponsor from their organization with them, they would qualify for those hours that individual would be working. So, for example, we had one lady. They did it in rotations for UFO. They had 5 students come at this time. That was, you know, from 12 to 2, and then the next group would come from 2 to 4. They would get those credit hours because they had that sponsor, if you will, with them.
Mayor, if I may?
Yes.
So they're not actually getting paid that money. It's a perceived value. They kind of bank it in trade for in-kind services from the cities. And like Juanita said, these are for large-scale, pre-planned events, not something like somebody comes up and says, hey, we need to stripe the field. Can I get volunteer hours? It's more like, hey, we're putting on a festival. We need volunteers because it's really difficult right now. People just aren't volunteering like they used to. So it's that kind of event that this is designed for.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Hildebrand?
Mr. Mayor, Ms. Jennings, 2 things. I see you had in here that maybe people could volunteer as wait staff.
Yes.
Would they not have to be qualified?
They would be qualified. We could give them a training.
Do they have to get their server's permit or anything like that?
If they are serving alcohol. And
Okay.
so probably we would not
So they don't, a food handler's permit would they have to get?
if they are handling food in the kitchen. If they are just picking up the plates after a dinner, then no, they would not need that.
Okay. The other question I have for you then is, are these events identified? Because the last thing we need to come in, somebody said it's at somebody's discretion, and then somebody comes in and we deny them to participate in this program, is there going to be a printed list of what events will qualify so that it's transparent and everybody can see it?
We don't have an actual list printed out and written down, but we have our city organized events, which would be UFO Festival, Night of the Living Zoo. Sometimes we have large events in this facility that we don't have enough staff. You know, we only have 7 staff members here. So when we have a large Christmas party in December, we have 3 weekends in December that we would need those help. I wouldn't be able to put them on a list. We kind of know that they come back year after year, but those would be eligible events where we would ask for volunteers.
I would like to see an eligible list. Even though you don't need the volunteers, you could make it an eligible list.
Sure.
Whether you accept them or not. I just want that to be transparent.
Absolutely.
So that somebody's not picking and choosing and accusing you or somebody else of denying them their due to participate in this program. So if we could get that amended into this.
Yes, yeah, Mr. Mayor, Counselor, the intent is to have an annual list of approved events. Now, what Ms. Jennings is talking about, like those wait staff and those kind of things, what we would do is we wouldn't identify the event itself, but the type of event, right? And so the idea was to establish those because we've had a lot of questions about certain probably smaller level events that people would love to donate and get credit for, but they don't really fit the parameters of what this is. So the idea, I concur with that as well too. The idea will be is that we will have a annual list that starts off if we find these activities that we've not planned for, then we'll have that check and balance within that system as to whether or not it does or does not.
So, Mr. Nee, would you be opposed that we amend this?
No,
to
not at all. I believe
list?
that'd be very acceptable, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, thank you. Yes.
If there's no further discussion.
We have more discussion unless we can hold off. We have Councilman Corn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to clear up the question you brought up about people working off their fines and stuff. They're not going to have anything to do with this. Those are as far apart as you can go. The working off fines is predicated in state statute. It's, the last time I looked at it was based on the federal minimum wage, and that's how you get that, and the courts run it, and you don't want to get into that mess.
Yeah.
Trust me, I've been there.
We don't.
Okay. And one last question. I was curious. You know, we have a number of individuals that do services and play taps for veterans and stuff at the cemetery, and we have a whole cemetery for veterans there. And would those individuals be able, if for those that play taps and do honor guards and things for veterans, would that be something that would qualify where they could get maybe money so we could have a Veterans Day parade in our community? You know, to go against the police or the charges that we charge for veterans. I mean, we run into this all the time about, well, the veterans want to have another parade in November this year, and they tell me that the city police said, no, they won't do it because they owe them $2,200 from last year.
Right. Mr. Mayor, I would say that I believe that some of those activities that are happening, like the taps and everything, we could designate that the hours that are committed to that can go to the Veterans Association in order to do that. I think in the case of the community support and everything, those are very good resources in order to help provide that help. So we hadn't talked about it very much for that level, but yes, I would agree that if we establish those onto that approved list, we could do that very easily.
Well, it's, it doesn't matter whether they're funeral or even driving them to the medical facilities. It takes an awful lot of time for people to do it, and how else are they going to get there? I mean, there's some real issues with that, and so I hope you'd look at something like that. Any further comments? Councilman?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor. I would like to make a motion that we put this back to the general service so that they can create this list of approved events that can be approved by the General Service Committee and then bring it forward. Because
So
we don't know what
I-
those, excuse me, I'm not finished, please. I'm not going to interrupt you, so please don't interrupt me. So that we'll have we don't have an understanding of who these are at this moment in time. So I would like to see the General Service Committee approve who that list is. So that, again, we're totally transparent with the citizens of this community. So that'd be my motion.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilman Hildebrand. We have a second? And a second by Councilman Orpressa.
I'd like to discuss it.
And Councilman Cornbest.
So you're wanting that to be an amendment? Why don't you make that an amendment to this document? That way, these folks can go ahead and use it. They're already behind the 8 ball. Summer's here. They've got a facility here that's so full that they cannot get people to clear dishes off tables. This is a perfect opportunity for them to go ahead. I suggest, instead of taking it back to a committee where it's going to take another 2 months to get up here, I suggest that you let Parker amend it and we can look at it. But I believe that we've pretty much already established which is going to go here, mainly for the convention center and stuff like that. So I think you're wasting time of these staff members that need this help.
May I?
Yes, Councilman.
I'm not opposed to that. But what I want to see is the list, like I say, so it's a clear playing field, so everybody understands. And so that if we want to pass this tonight, but it's going to be amended then so that there is a list. I'm not trying to stop progress from taking place. I'm just trying to create transparency again so that people know exactly what events will qualify for that. And I think the General Service Committee can do that. So if we want to make this amendment, however we can make it, Mr. Parker, but the events should be approved by General Services.
Counselor, I think you could approve the program with direction to staff to bring that list and report it to the next General Services Committee meeting.
We can do that, and then this program can move on.
Yes.
So I'm okay with that amendment.
So go ahead and approve this here tonight.
Right.
And then the list needs to go through General Services, even though there's a similar list.
Well, I don't know that it needs to be, it could just be an information item. It could just be, we did the list. I mean, I don't know
Okay.
that, you could.
So can you make a friendly amendment for that? Because you just said you wanted the whole thing to go back to. Can
That's
you make
fine.
a friendly amendment that this may go ahead through tonight?
They can
and
go
then-
ahead with this, but the list of events will need to be approved by General Services.
Okay. Juan, do you agree with that, since you second? Okay.
So that'd be
If I
the
may,
motion.
Mayor,
Yes, Councilman,
no, I agree. This has already been to General Services at least twice, and it just keeps getting held up. I agree, an amendment would be good, so we can move forward with the program and then add the list of events.
I couldn't
Okay.
hear all of that.
She-
So did she agree to that?
she
Is it-
agreed that it would move forward.
Okay.
But to be clear, are we asking that this, or are you asking staff to bring this to General Services as a report just to explain the list, or are you wanting that General Services recommend approval and bring the list to be approved by the City Council?
I personally think that the General Service has enough education in their heads to accept that as informational, my opinion. Our committees are supposed to be there because we were elected to be smart for our citizens.
Councilman, but not everyone serves on the General Services Committee. We have not seen any list. Some of us haven't seen any lists that they have. So it's okay. Whatever list it should be out should be circulated among all counselors so we can look at it and see what's out there before, and that's fine if it goes back to them, but it should be circulated to all counselors. And if somebody had something they wanted to add to that list, I think they should have the opportunity to discuss it in front of the General Services Committee and this group. I don't think anybody's arguing about the fact that this body is, that we can let this go ahead. But I think if they forget something and somebody has a good idea, it should be able to be brought to get the list out early so the people can bring whatever changes they would like to have to the General Services Committee and present it and have an opportunity to get that program on there. Not everybody knows what list. I mean, I don't think anybody can tell you the whole list right now. So give everybody a chance, and I think that's all that this motion is trying to do, and that General Services can approve it.
May I add my recommendation to this? If you go ahead and approve the program tonight, it should be based upon the contingency that a annual list of activities are established. I want to make sure, I believe that it can go back through General Services for review of that, and then it could come forward to the full city council for just the approval of what the immediate list is. We can establish at that time as well too, for if we miss an activity or an event within that structure, we can establish the system of how we would add something to that as well if we find one that did not make it on there at the time but came forward. And so it would be my recommendation to make sure that everybody gets a voice within that we base the decision of the program on the contingency that we bring an annual list through the General Services to the City Council in this next round, and then that should resolve all of these type of issues. I'm a little uncomfortable with leaving it too wide open with those activities, because I want to know what those activities that you wish to have recognized as well too.
So this is going to be an annual list, from what I hear you telling me.
At least the first time through, because we'll establish out what activities constitute the value program. Okay. Once we have that list there, I would say that I don't think it has to be approved annually. That's not what I was actually saying. What I would say is that we would create the system in order to move things on and off depending on how we wish to grow and expand and
the list is a moving and living thing.
But I would like to make sure that the full council is aware of that, because there is an impact to it, and I would be more comfortable with the full council at least weighing in on the tail end of that project or the program.
Okay, I just wanted this to move forward because it's been sitting for so many months and we need to utilize the program. So if you're willing to change it to that and move it forward, and just the list have to be okie dokied.
Councilman Hildebrand.
I believe that's a motion on the floor at the moment, as it was described by Mr. Neeb.
Thank you, sir.
That we will have that annual list, and
Thank you, sir.
we'll move it ahead. So
I believe so.
And I think that's the motion that was made. If it's clear to me, Mr. Parker, is that the motion that was made? Does it need to be remade, or?
No, I think we understand what the motion is. The only clarification that I think staff would like to have is, can the program start immediately, or is the idea that we have to wait till the list is approved?
No, I think we said this, the program will start, but the expectation is get this back, the list, to General Services for their next meeting.
Thank you.
We're not stopping the program.
Thank you.
That'd be my,
It was never the intent.
So that would be the instructions to the staff, as this motion passed, to get that to General Services to their next meeting so that we can see it on the council meeting.
Thank you, Counselor. Yes, we understand.
Thank you, Councilman Hildebrand. Councilman Orpesa, do you agree with it? All the statements we have so far? As a second. Okay. Any further discussion? If the clerk will call the roll for item 7.
Counselor Corn?
Yes.
Counselor Foster?
Yes.
Counselor Arnold?
Yes.
Counselor Oropesa? Counselor Halverson?
Yes.
Counselor Hildebrand?
Yes.
Counselor Corn Best?
The best for last, yes.
Is there any discussion on the last comment?
6-1.
Oh, excuse me. By a vote of 6 in the affirmative, 1 in the negative.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes. Councilman.
I make a motion that we have a 10-minute recess. We've been here for 2 hours.
Have a motion for recess. Is there any objection? Seeing none, for 10 minutes, please. Everybody, run quickly. Yeah, it's not working. They didn't turn it on.
driving outfit? You're just funny.
No, but they did pick it up.
Oh, I know that. He's gonna be a while before he gets back.
Oh, yeah.
Well, depending on the severity.
He needs to slow down this one, but his people.
You know, you've got to start early enough to take care of yourself and your family.
That's the first issue in the community. If you don't.
I mean, it's pretty high on the list, but it ain't the highest one.
No, but it is, yes.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
I'm in my chair. How'd you get down on the end?
Radioactive, didn't be able to.
Oh,
They told me it would be best to just have some space.
how long? You sound a little better than what I was just beat. But I know exactly what I'm saying. Him, he did say
Time's up. Okay, next we have, consider ratifying a change to change order to Alpha Southwest for the Roswell Air Center well number 1. Yes, sir.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, City Council, on agenda item number 8, I'm here this evening asking you to consider ratifying a change order to Alpha Southwest for the Roswell Air Center well number 1 VFG project in the amount of $64,259.39. A little bit of background. The change order to the Roswell Air Center well number 1 VFD project was due to a 25% increase in materials, 10-inch mag meter to measure the well flow, parts and labor for running underground electrical, and a new transfer switch was not included in the original estimate, and additional underground piping and valves to tie the well back to the city water system. In the PowerPoint up here, you can see a picture of the new VFD, which is in a new building. So they actually demoed the old well building and built a whole new building, concrete pad, everything. Whenever they do these VFD projects, they completely replace the well motor, casing, shaft, turbines, everything on it, along with all new electrical and the VFD. The variable frequency drive, which is the VFD, it slowly ramps up the well. It starts it up real slow, and then it turns it back off real slow, so it doesn't hammer the system. So it saves a lot of shock and damage to the infrastructure. On the financial consideration, this item will be funded by the Roswell Enterprise Fund. This change order is not part of the approved fiscal year 2022 budget, but just a little history on that. It was actually finally paid out. So this has been paid in the FY22 budget. So it has already been completed and paid, and the purchase order closed, just because it has that on there. So it said it will require a budget amendment, but it already has been paid in the FY22 budget. This change order will increase the purchase order amount from $267,822.42 to $332,081.81, which does include the New Mexico gross receipts tax. Infrastructure Committee recommended ratification 3-0 of the change order for the Roswell Air Center well number 1 VFD project to Alpha Southwest in the amount of $64,259.39 at their July 5th, 2022 meeting. And with that, I stand for any questions.
Okay, questions?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes,
you want a motion?
yes, Mr. Corn.
Mayor, I move we ratify the change order to Alpha Southwest to the RAC Well 1 VFD project, amount of $64,259.39, and then I want to be recognized after we get this.
Okay, we're motion for approval by Councilman Corn, a second by Councilman Hildebrand. Oh, sorry. I'll look the other way. Okay. Okay, motion and a second. Discussion on this item. Councilman Corn.
Mr. Chairman, just, I've got some general comments, and I'll get specific on this. He answered most of my questions, but in the next 4 items, there's almost $2 million worth of expenditure here, and that's just a little hard for me to take on a consent item. And the other little heartburn I have is none of these items have been to Finance Committee. None of them. And that's one of the questions I had was, and Mr. Mayor, you understand that we're in kind of a shift right now this time of year. Is this 22 budget item? Is this a 23 budget item? Where's the money coming from? How it's going to be allocated? And you did a good job. You answered that. You said this was in the 22. So it's a carryover in our 23 because we haven't spent the money yet, and it's already in there. Am I correct?
Mr. Mayor and Councilor Corn, no, the money has already been spent on this particular item. It was paid out last fiscal year before June 30th. for both item number 8, number 9, and I believe number 10. No,
10 is gonna be.
10 is a new one. So item number 8 and 9 have already been paid out last fiscal year.
Yeah, but they were pending on that list we talked about briefly the other day, correct?
That's correct.
And we got a big bunch of POs that everybody's working real hard at figuring out where it is and close all this stuff out. And so I just want the whole council to understand that I'm not opposed to any of this stuff. It's just that I want to understand, because you have given me and Council Hildebrand and Perry and Foster the job of keeping track of the dollars and cents, and I'm doing my best. So that's all I have, just clarification. I read through all this stuff. It wasn't clear. I did have a phone call, conversation with Mr. Fuentes earlier this afternoon, or late this afternoon, earlier before the meeting, and he was able to answer my questions. But I thought it was important the rest of the council understand this. That's all I have.
Thank you. Are there further questions? We have a motion for approval by Councilman Corn, seconded by Councilman Hildebrand for item 8 on tonight's agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None opposed. So we at 7-0 or? Okay, thank you very much. Oh, you have another one here, so.
I got a couple more, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, we have, for item 9 on today's calendar, this is, for the change order for for the White Cloud Pipeline for the water line repairs on Garden and Cherry and 3rd and Railroad.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman?
I move that we ratify the change order to the large diameter emergency well line repair work to White Cloud Pipeline Corporation for water line repairs for Garden and Cherry for the amount of $15,138.72. And if I'm reading this right, and 3rd and Railroad for the amount of $55,264.57. We've got two items in this one. Okay.
Yes.
All right, that's my motion.
Okay, I have a motion and a second by Council Lady Arnold. Are there any further questions? Seeing none. Excuse me. Yes, sir, go ahead.
I've got questions unless he answers them all.
I was going to let you guys vote.
Well, go ahead.
No.
I was trying to help.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, City Council. I'm here asking you this evening to consider ratifying change orders to large diameter emergency water line repair work to White Cloud Pipeline Corp. For water line repairs on Garden and Cherry in the amount of $15,138.72, and 3rd and Railroad in the amount of $55,264.57. Little background, the change order on the Garden and 3rd was the addition of two 36-inch Hymax couplings, and they were originally be provided by the city. We ended up having to use those. We had an additional 36-inch valve break on Stone in Montana, so we had to dig that valve up and get it replaced. So we used the Hymaxes we had for this work on that project, and then we had to purchase two more to continue this repair work. And then, and the purchase of 18 feet of additional 36-inch ductile iron pipe that will go into city inventory for future repairs. The change order on 3rd and Railroad was due to additional materials needed, two 20-inch MJ45s and four 20-inch Megalugs with accessory kits, and also the BNSF protective liability blanket policy and a rail close flagger for 13 days and additional project work days due to sandpack piping in the casing under the railroad tracks. So the blanket policy and the railroad flagger, what happened is the casing didn't go as far as we thought. we had to encroach into the railroad tracks, into the right-of-way right there, so we were too close to the railroad. So we had to get a permit to get that close, and we had to have a approved railroad flagger come in to talk to the trains as they were passing through to make sure there's clearance there. You'll see in the pictures right here, that's the fittings right there on the casing right there. So that's the size of piping right there, 24-inch, and it goes down to 18-inch. We didn't know those 45s were there. We thought it was level and going through there, and we found out the fittings were in there. That's an additional cost to this project. And that shows you the depth of it, the shoring, and the other pipe on the other side of the railroad tracks. So it just kind of gives you a little scope of the type of work that's being done. And sand that was packed, they actually sand packed the pipe in that casing. So we had to vacuum it with the hydro excavator for almost 4 days to get that sand out of there. And that's running at 3,000 PSI. So that tells you how packed it was in there. Okay, financial consideration. This one also was paid in the FY22 budget, just so you guys know. And it will increase the purchase amount of the purchase order from $533,202.24 to $602,203.69, which does include the New Mexico grocery receipts tax. The Infrastructure Committee did recommend ratification 3-0 for the change orders of emergency water main repair work to White Cloud Pipeline Corp. in amount of $69,001.45 at their July 5th meeting to send it to you guys tonight. And with that, I stand for any questions.
Mr. Mayor.
Dave? Go ahead, Representative.
Well, I have a question. I'm just further clarifying. This is left over out of 22, and this is another part of that stack of open.
Yes, sir, Councilor Corn. That was another one that we actually squeezed in the last and got it paid before the June 30th deadline. We made sure to get that. We were in a rush. We weren't sure if we were going to be able to get them in, but we did get 2. So the next item, we did not. So the next one will require a budget amendment to include in the FY23 budget. But that's on our next agenda item, agenda item number 10.
Okay. That's what my notes show. I'm just keeping you honest.
Okay.
All right.
Any further questions?
That's all I have, Mr.
Hey,
Mayor.
yeah, you know, on your, what is your blanket bond cost or whatever for the railroad?
The
Or
railroad,
your
the bonding
insurance.
on it? Let me see if I have a cost on that. I actually did have, let me see. It was $1,500 for the bonding. For the blanket liability policy. It's on the second.
Okay, well, no, that's fine. And that just covers if you have to disrupt the trains, is that the cost for that?
I think it's just a bond to cover any kind of damage or anything. If you were to damage anything on the tracks or anything, or something were to happen to the train itself. It's just an insurance policy, a bonding.
Is there a limit to how much it's covered? I mean, you know, I don't know, if it's just, you know, if it's just $1,500, it's almost like a nuisance tax.
I mean, that's a good question, Mr. Mayor. I don't know exactly how much that bond covered, but that was what was required by the railroad for us to be able to do the work there. So we purchased the bond that they required us to purchase in order to do the work at the railroad.
Uh-oh, big dog. Excuse me.
Mr. Mayor and Council, that $1,500 policy is for this work only, and it only covers up to $120,000 worth of work. And once this work is done, their policy is done. I hope that helps.
Yeah, so, okay, well, that's, at least you know what you're bonding against. And we have a number of problems. I mean, the railroad, when they close the highway for 45 minutes or 380 and stuff, sometimes, I mean, they're very, very difficult to deal with the railroad on any kind of issues concerning drainage or anything else. And somewhere along the line, we need to get with the highway department and stuff and see where we can work on improving the drainage across those tracks all the way through the city. And I don't know how you get them to get them to respond, but we need to have some means of getting them to do that. And so everybody needs to start thinking about how to get them to respond in a, in an orderly manner, because they're very difficult to deal with. Okay, thank you. Any further comments? Okay, we have a motion by, for approval by Councilman Corn, a second by Council Lady Arnold, for approval of item 9 on today's, for the repair work to White Cloud Pipeline on Garden and Cherry and Third and Railroad. I would, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, but I think it's still by a vote of 7 to nothing. Item 9's been approved. Next, we have item 10 for the change order for number 3 for North Atkinson Rehabilitation Project to J&H Services. Okay.
Mr.
We have a
Mayor.
motion by Councilman Horn.
Make a motion to adopt change order number 3 for the Water Lines North Atkinson Rehabilitation Project to J&H Services for an amount of $79,262.87. And that's what we're asking for, right? Okay, I'm done. Somebody can second.
Okay.
Second.
Second by Councilman Arnold. Questions by members of the committee? Or wait, would you like to explain where it comes from? This comes out of this year's budget.
This one will require a budget amendment in the FY23 budget. This one did not make it before the June 30 deadline.
Okay. Councilman Hildebrand and Councilman Corn.
The work has been completed.
The work has been completed, yes, sir. On this first phase, yes, this work has been completed.
I noticed the estimates made in May, and that was before the preliminary budget was put together, was it not? Mr. Fuentes? And why this could have been put in the preliminary budget? Just a question of order.
Sure, Mr. Mayor and Councilor, not sure when the date of the change order came in, and when it was originally submitted for committee consideration and approval. This was, we were made aware of this item after the fiscal year had already closed. That's why it's being brought back to you all as a ratification. So, as you may recall, we approved the preliminary budget towards the end of May. So I'm not sure exactly what the timing issue was.
Counselor, can I chime in real quick?
Please, Mr. Sanchez.
I was waiting on this one. The original estimate that came out 5/6 of 2022 included an additional $19,950 that I did not agree with for a hold time on an 18-inch line stop. So I was waiting for Jim Mitchell to get back with me in order to discuss that. We finally got together and I got that $19,950 removed.
Good job.
Because it was actual hold time that they should have did better scheduling for. I mean, we pay very good attention to our estimates. So that's why there's a delay in bringing this to you. That's why I wasn't able to get it. But I still want to save us money. We review everything, make sure that the charges are correct, and we agree with what's being charged to the city of Roswell. So we try to pay very good attention to that.
No, I appreciate that you did that. And so I guess my question is really more towards Mr. Fuentes is, why would this not just, we haven't finalized the budget for 23 yet, so why would this not just go ahead and be put in that budget without having to be ratified for 23 budget adjustment?
Mr. Mayor and Councilor, so the first thing is you have a change order that the council approved for the original amount. So the reason for the ratification is because the original approved amount was for the $700,000. So that corrects that issue there, that the original PO is being increased. Just for clarification, you are correct. We don't need to do a budget adjustment because we're still working on finalizing the final budget. If the council approves it tonight, then we're just going to go ahead and include it in the final budget already. So we'll have it already for the council, for the finance committee and the council already in there.
Okay, that answers my, thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Corn, do you have any further questions?
Well, Mr. Mayor, just as further clarification, this item and the one we just voted on comes out of the enterprise fund. It doesn't impact the general fund line, but it's still important to keep track of all those different funds. So that's the reason why I asked to get it off the consent, so everybody understands. We're not trying to hide the ball on any of this stuff, and we'll be meeting soon on the finalization of the budget. So it's just around the corner. We're just not quite there yet. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any further comments? Okay, we have a motion for item 10 on the budget by for approval by Councilman Corn, seconded by Councilman Arnold. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Opposed? Okay, by a vote of 7 in the favor, none in the negative, the item 10 is passed to council. Next, we have.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Councilman.
I move that we act next on item 11 to adopt the changeover for projects ITB 22-001, ITPB, Indio Tango Bravo 22-010, which are mill fill pavement maintenance projects, and I think we're going to hear from Mr. Nahar on this one. And it's an increase on the 001 of $833,074.11, and on 010, an increase of $873 and yes, $791.10. And Mr. Chairman, or excuse me, Mr. Mayor, this is I think, the balance of the GRT settlement with the state.
I'll
We have a
second.
motion. Do we have a second by
I'll second.
Councilman Arnold? Thank you. Council Lady Arnold. Okay.
Mayor, Council, good evening. Just to follow up on some previous items you guys kind of mentioned. Mayor, on August 2nd, I will be meeting with the DOT. They're coming to the engineering conference room to discuss Southeast Main, aka US 285 drainage from McGaffey to Brasher. So that's already in progress. Mr. Sanchez, district engineer, and his staff and I will all sit down and we'll start discussing a plan. FYI, Monday, we're closing Atkinson again from 4th to Cherry. And we're going to start phase 2 and 3, hopefully be done in about 2.5 months. Got to do the water line, but now we have the parts, and we can hopefully progress faster, and if Mother Nature doesn't flood us out too much, we'll be okay. The other thing, I do very much appreciate Councilor Corn's comments. It's what I call old money versus new money. I hope that when council passes the fiscal year 23, these carryover POs are not counted toward my fiscal year 23, because in reality, in my mind, we'll be dealing to citizens less road work if we count the carryover POs that were issued with the fiscal year 22 money. But that's my opinion. What you have before you is change orders for the mill and fill. In March 2022, council agreed to do some GRT award money to get this done. And what was agreed, we'd split it between the two contractors that we have with mill and fill projects. That's been done. Constructors is complete with theirs. They've been essentially paid. We're doing an audit of the books to make sure that everything's right. J&H hasn't done theirs, so a big portion of this was already paid with fiscal year 2022 money, but we'll also have a carryover, and again, you know how I feel about old money, what I call old money versus new money. There will be a little bit of savings because I didn't commit all of it because I got to have a contingency in case when we start milling, we start falling to the pavement. I did leave a little bit, 4% contingency, just to cover those things that do happen and I've experienced in the past. The other thing, you'll get a little change back because the GRT did drop. So when we do actually make the payments, this change order was based on the old GRT. We'll get a little bit back on the new GRT. Again, this was passed in March. This is in the preliminary budget, the 1.7 million, and then went to infrastructure again in July 5th, and it was passed to bring it to where we're at now. The picture you have before us is Juniper Street, which is one of the, I call them the Lucky Lotto streets that got to mill and fill this with this money. And I stand for any questions.
Questions? Seeing none. Mr. Nahart, you know, when you talked about having that thing to meet with the highway department, you know, rather than go all the way to Brasher, the Brasher Road for water that goes down Brasher from out of that drainage pond, if they could take that, work with the fairgrounds and take that line straight across Main Street or Southeast Main and go right beneath the racetrack. I don't remember if the racetrack is owned by the fairgrounds or not. But if you could take that straight across that thing and not go all the way to Brasher, one of the nice things is you get all that water out and going down Atkinson before it ever gets to Brasher, which already is not, the street does not drain very well. And you'd get it, because it's all going to Atkinson and headed down, going north to that drainage pond, is the way I understand that, if you see what I'm saying.
I see what you're saying, and we'll put that on one of the considerations when we start looking at the drainage possibilities.
Yeah, because the Atkinson, the Brasher Road, the 24-inch, two 24-inch pipes that are there go uphill. And so they will not carry, a full load. And that would just, I think it'd help everybody because it'd keep all that water away from Atkinson or from Brasher and going down there, and it'd go straight down Atkinson.
Duly noted. I'll put it on the suggestion.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Any further comments? Seeing none, we have a motion approval of item 11, change order for projects ITB 22-001 and ITB 22-010, mill and fill, for approval by Councilman Corn, seconded by Council Lady Arnold. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you, Council.
Thank you. By a vote of 7 in the affirmative, none in the negative, that item has passed the council. Okay. Oh, here's a good one. This will solve everybody's rollover problems.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Councilman.
if you'll allow me, I'll move the rest of the items on the consent agenda. No, I don't agree with that philosophy.
Yeah, that's all we did. We just removed them out, so item 12 was already passed.
I don't think that's code, Mayor, but whatever you want.
Well, I agree, but I think that's the way the motion was made, Councilman. I would agree. I think that consent items should be under that, and you should pass strictly to the consent items and do it, separate that out so we could save confusion about what we pass. But that's not the way it, I guess, has been done. It's the way it should be done. But, okay, next we have let's see, do we now wait on consent? Did we do all the, up through 24 is done now? Is that right?
Our next item will be item 26.
26, okay. Okay, new business, we have resolutions. We have resolution, item 26 is resolution number 22-41. Consider adopting resolution 22-41, amending the governing body rules of order. Councilman Hildebrand.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that we consider adopting Resolution 22-41, amending the governing body rules of order for the city of Roswell. Mr. Patterson.
Second.
Good evening again, Mayor and Council. Just to refresh your recollection, the governing body rules are the governing body's own procedural guidelines that you all adopt. This was originally adopted in Resolution 1658, subsequently amended in 1765. These are procedural guidelines only. Failure to strictly follow the rules of order does not invalidate an otherwise valid action of the City Council. This is kind of a rewrite, although much of it is the same. It's been reordered from the existing governing body rules. I'll hit a couple highlights of things that are different. One of the things that is changed is that final committee action would also prohibit reconsideration of an item within 6 months unless requested by 5 city councilors. I have or the mayor there, but I think I'm wrong there. I think it was just 5 city councilors, if I recall. And Councilor Oropesa, I omitted your amendment at legal in the packet, so I've passed out you'll see it's red line there. It's a big paragraph. The kind of the Reader's Digest version of that is that as if an item is going to go through multiple committees, as it goes from one committee to the next, if any one committee votes something down, it stops there. That's the final action that would kick in the 6-month prohibition on reconsideration. But if there's a 2-2 vote, it would move forward without a recommendation. Have I got that right, Councilor Oropesa?
If there is a motion made at that level and the motion passes to go to the next step.
But if I recall, if there's a 2-2 vote, it would go forward without a recommendation.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay. So that is one of the major changes, is this new rule that if something is voted down in a committee, it would not be brought back for 6 months unless requested by 5 councilors. That's already the rule at the city council level. That would apply this to committees as well. Another thing that this would do would amend the provisions relating to the election of the mayor pro tem and allow a plurality vote to obtain the office. I would suggest, however, the deputy city attorney and I kind of went back and forth on this for a little while. The problem we see with it is that according to the statute that you'll see there's 313(2)(c), an action of the governing body is valid when a majority of the members present and voting vote for it. I would suggest that if you've got 4-3-3, just as an example, the 4 can't win because it doesn't have a majority yet. There has to be some process to get to 6 or 5 if there was 9, or you say what I'm saying. So that would be something that I don't have an exact answer to how to do that. I think that's why the old one was so convoluted in the old rules, was that problem. Okay, and then the last thing, this was at the recommendation of the legal committee that there was some ambiguity in the old governing body rules of order as to the authority of the city manager to place items on the agenda. It was kind of implied but not stated explicitly. The recommendation of legal committee was to explicitly prohibit that. So that is, you'll see it, one of the red lines in your document. So legal did vote unanimously to recommend this with the amendments which have been handed out to you tonight. And so tonight we would ask you to consider adoption of this proposed resolution amending the governing body rules, and I will stand for any questions.
We have questions.
Yes, Mayor.
Oh, Councilman Wait, did we get a motion for passage?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I didn't get this. Okay. So, Councilman Foster.
Thank you, Mayor. Your explanation of if it was a 2-2 isn't what's written here. Because it says, however, if the vote ends up in a tie, the chairperson of the respective committee can entertain a motion to send the item.
Oh, yeah, you're right. I apologize. Yeah,
So
so if there's a 2-2, then you'd have to have another vote to send it without a recommendation.
But the chairperson has to recognize that motion.
That's the way it's written. Yes, sir.
So if the chairman was a no, and he doesn't want to recognize it, then what we've done is given two counselors the position to kill something.
Right. Well, okay, the chairperson of the respective committee can entertain a motion to, can entertain a motion.
Doesn't say shall.
Shall, right. So if the chairperson in that circumstance did not want to, he could prohibit it from going forward on that 2-2 vote, as written.
And then if that ended up in a 2-2 vote, what do we do?
Then that would fail.
So then what you're saying is, respectively, if Councilor Perry or I don't want to pass the city budget and we say no, then it's dead and we shut down the city with just two city councilors vote.
Okay, so let's think about this scenario. So so we're in finance committee, there's a budget, right? And then there's a 2-2 vote. And so then somebody would make a motion to send it without a recommendation, and assuming the chair was okay with that, it would go forward, but if the chair didn't.
No, but then the vote, and then it's a 2-2
and
vote
then-
there,
right,
and
then
it
the
dies.
The chair would entertain a motion to move it forward without a recommendation, and then it would get 2-2 again and then die in the committee, yes. That would be that's a possible scenario under these.
So we're saying two city councilors are more important than the other 8. I don't see why we would do this, but I'm just saying that is a possible scenario, and why would we set ourselves up for that?
And I will say I agree with that point. I would also just point out, though, that 5 city councilors can bring it back.
Only one, but if Councilor Perry or I say no, it has to be one of the ones in oppose, and we're the only ones that one of us would have to agree to it.
No, I understand. I get that. But once it fails in the committee, 5 city councilors can request in writing to bring it back.
One has to be one of the ones that
On the prevailing side.
Prevailing side, so it would be one of Councilor Perry or myself would have
Right.
to say no.
Yes,
So
that's
then we're
correct.
dead. It's dead. I don't see, the committees are not designed to kill anything. Committees are to pass it forward, even if they don't agree with it. They're to vet it, to make it, to correct it and fix it to where everybody can understand it, but it's still not a level where we stop something. And so that's my problem with this.
Yes, sir.
I yield.
Okay, any further discussion? Sorry, I didn't write down who made the motion to pass it.
Counselor Hildenbrand was the first and Oropesa was the second.
And who was the second?
Counselor Oropesa?
Councilors, if I can make a brief recommendation that you either amend the mayor pro tem section, you could return it back to what it was in the original governing body rules, or I'll send it back to legal for further consideration, because I think as it's written right now, allowing a plurality to win would not be legal under statute.
I'm not seeing that on the record.
No. Yes, hold on. So it begins, it's on page 7, and you'll see we're starting at line 3. There's several paragraphs there, right? No, this was not changed by the legal committee, so it's not in red. The red lines are what was recommended to be changed from the original document by legal. I'm sorry, I wasn't clear about that. No, this is what was originally recommended by Councilor, or brought to the legal committee by Councilor Oropesa. It is not the same as what's in our current governing body rules. Yes, ma'am.
Can you speak into your mic, please? Counselor Best, can you speak into your mic?
Sorry, is that better? Would it be okay if you'd read it again and explain it again in layman terms so we can understand it, please?
Let me just, So I think that what this does not clearly address is the circumstance where you have a 4-3-3, is what I'm suggesting. What happens in a 4-3-3? Who wins? Because I think if you had 4-3-3, as this is written, I would assume that the 4 wins because it got the most votes, but it can't win because that candidate didn't get a majority.
Councilman Oropesa.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You know, when you look at, when you're voting for Mayor Pro Tem, we've had a couple of incidents where there have been ties, 5-5, for instance. So there's a tiebreaker in the process.
Mm-hmm.
So for all intended purposes, nobody gets a majority of the council.
Well, and I assume that if there was a 5-5, the mayor could break that tie.
No. The mayor doesn't vote for Mayor Pro Tem.
Let me think about that. Okay.
So when I wrote this, is the majority of the council present,
yes, sir,
that would be eligible to vote will be the one that wins. Because again, if you have a 5-5 tie or 4-4 tie or whatever tie you get, you're going to end up doing a tiebreaker. And so you're not going to get a 6.
I think I need to contemplate that for a little bit here.
If it would help, I would make the recommendation to send it back to legal to get some of the issues that you're asking or that you're questioning to get cleared.
I would appreciate that, yes, sir.
And so, Mr. Mayor, I move that we send this particular item back to legal to get some clarification on.
Second.
We have a motion to move this back. The second, there is discussion on that. Go ahead. Yes, Councilman Hildebrand.
I'm confused, Counselor,
Yes, sir.
because when we voted, I think you just said that the majority wins
Yes, sir.
in these kind of issues.
Yes, sir.
But when we voted for the city clerk, it was a 4-4, and your statement was it needed to be 6.
Yes, sir.
So that's
that,
different than what I'm hearing you say now.
Yes, those are different.
And then the other thing I want to address is that Councilor Opresa says the mayor doesn't get to vote, but as I understand by the rules, he's a part of the governing body, is he not?
Yes.
And does not the governing body get to vote. So do we need clarification on all of that?
So there are certain, so there's a baseline rule, which is that an action of the governing body is valid when a majority of those present and voting vote in favor of it. However, there are certain things that require a majority of the entire governing body, and they're spelled out in statute. One of them is adopting an ordinance or a resolution, for example, right? This is another example of one of those things that when you appoint an appointed official, it also expressly says in statute, shall be approved by a majority of the governing body and not just the majority of those present and voting. So that's the distinction.
Council, any other comments? You know, I have a little question on this, and I'm going to tell you, it's when you use the city will determine, the city clerk will determine how to do that. I have some issues with that, because if the city clerk is appointed by, as it says in what I believe it says in the law, is the city clerk is appointed by the mayor. But yet, our city clerk, who I guess we have now, is appointed by Mr. Nebb. And so all I'm saying, that screws up a check and a balance system between this type of government. And that's why I think it's important to look, because it allows the city manager's side to get into the business of the governing body side, which one is to set policy and the other is to perform the work. And I don't believe that the way it is now with the city clerk under Mr. Nebb's control, I don't believe that is a fair representation in this form of government in any way, shape, or form to have her determine anything in this.
Mayor, our appointed city clerk is Amalia Martinez, and she is here, and she's the appointed city clerk.
Well, you know, I get somebody that sends a thing out in the mail all the time as being city clerk. I'm just, so I don't know that, but I don't know that that's what I've seen. I've seen letterhead with other things on, I believe. So I don't know who's going to believe in what now. So that's all I'm saying. But I think there is a check and a balance in any form of government that is out there. And I think between when you have a policy-making group and they're there, they should not be intruded on by anyone else outside of the group of people that are in the policy-making group. And there shouldn't be any inference or any decisions that come from the non-policy-making group that is in this council should, no one outside of that group should make anything in this. And so, I mean, I'm just looking, if I think there are things in the statute that also say, I think there's some things that only the council votes on fixing the pro tem, and you had to get to say, as I recall, it's what it said.
Yes, sir.
And so, if a 5-5 and they can't get there, maybe it's best to leave it a stalemate until you find somebody else who will go to 6. But if that's important, or else you let the mayor vote in case of a tie, because it says in other places, it says that the mayor votes in any case of a 5-5 tie. It's the only time he gets to vote.
Yes, sir.
But you can't let anyone else into the decision part on this council side that, in my opinion, I think it's no one else outside of the elected members should make that decision by one way or the other. And I think that's the way it should be. I don't think there should be any. You can either just everybody stay stubborn at 5 and one take it for 6 weeks and the other one take it for 6 weeks or half a year or something. But that's there are other ways to remedy it other than having the clerk in there. I don't think the clerk should be involved in anything in that, in my opinion, because I think that is we are policymakers Mr. Neeb and his staff do the other. That's why I think that there is a huge difference between the function of the treasurer, in my opinion, and the clerk, and all those people are there for to serve at the pleasure of the council and the mayor. And it's different. That's part of the checks and balances system that I see that we need to have in government. And so I don't know where it is, but I don't think you should let the clerk get in anything in that, because it can put the clerk in a bad situation as well.
Mr. Mayor, we can look at that if it goes back to legal.
That's fine. So, any further comments? We have a motion on the floor to send this back to the legal committee. Is there any objection to sending it back to legal? Or do you want to call the roll? But seeing none, I would rule that it would be 7-0 to send this back to legal committee. Okay. And I don't know who's going to be right or wrong on there being that the legal committee put the red lines on here and they missed that one, but that was existing stuff, so I don't think you can blame that on them either. But it's interesting. See where we get. Okay. So item 26, we're going to back to legal.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
I think this one's mine.
Okay. Councilman Corn.
Mr. Chairman, give me just a second to flip through some pages here, so I know I'm on the right item. I move to adopt Resolution 2242, authorizing the deputy, city manager to act as representative city of Roswell, execution 10-year lease purchase agreement with Pierce Financial for 4 new fire trucks from Siddons Martin Emergency Group, is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. For $2,545,338.
We have a motion for approval by Councilman Corn, second by Councilman Foster. I think that was right. For item 27, is there any discussion? Well, excuse me, go ahead, Chief, tell us about your trucks.
So basically what I was going to try and do is just as quick as I can. This, as you can see, went through actually the Finance Committee and the Public Safety Committee. So it's basically the same thing we're working on here, except this resolution is basically because of the requirements of the loan process and paperwork itself. Because the time frame on it, I believe it's the 20th that the paperwork's supposed to be signed and closed out on the actual loan paperwork. So therefore, the resolution is to meet the requirements within the loan application process and to give the deputy city manager the authority to be the one to sign those papers to meet that time frame. So does that make sense?
I guess, yeah, they could have sent.
And the reason that this has played out the way that it has through public safety as well as the finance committee is because we, for lack of a better way of putting it, got really lucky. The company happened to have 4 trucks that are currently being built. They're getting finished up as we speak. So we were able to purchase all 4 of those fire trucks for September delivery.
No. Any questions? Chief, will they have our screwy thread on it that belongs only to Roswell?
Have what?
Will they have our screwy thread on it that
Yes.
belongs only
Yes,
to
they
Roswell?
will. Yes.
Okay. For those of you who don't know, we're the only city, I think, anywhere around here has our thread pattern for our fire hose. Just for you guys to know, it causes a lot of problems.
And if you ever run into anybody that knows where that actually came from, I'd love to add that to my Roswell Fire Department history book.
So we have a motion by, for approval by Councilman Corn, a second by Councilman Foster. And this will give our, you know, I can't really ask that you look at this, but this will give the deputy city manager, this will get him very excited to be able to sign off on purchasing all these trucks. I mean, I can just see him, he'll be beaming, and he'll probably get a nice little cap from Pierce or somebody that says, I signed on for, you know, $2.5 million worth of fire trucks. And if he doesn't, then you shouldn't complete the deal.
Fair enough.
Thank you. That'll, all right.
We'll get him an RFD cap for sure.
Everybody keep that a secret. He's not here yet, so we might as well have a little fun with him. All right. So all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Excuse me, that's a roll call.
Roll call, excuse me. Okay. The clerk will tell us to call the roll, so we'll please call the roll.
Counselor Corn?
Yes.
Counselor Foster?
Yes.
Counselor Arnold? Counselor Oropesa?
Yes.
Counselor Halverson?
Yes.
Counselor Hildenbrand?
Yes.
Counselor Best? Yes. Motion passes 7 to
By a motion to 7-0, item 27 for the purchase, resolution number 22-42 is passed the council. Okay, thank you. Next we have, oh no, or was that
28.
28? This was 28, sorry. Wording.
So Mayor, Council, I make a motion that we consider approval to purchase 4 new fire trucks from Siddons Martin Emergency Group for a total price of $2,545,338 with a lease purchase agreement with Pierce Financial for 10 years with a yearly payment of $313,758.20.
Second.
Okay, by Councilman Halverson, who's nice to have her, you know, making a motion. We have a motion for approval of item 28 by Council Halverson, seconded by Councilman Corn. I think that's right. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, clerk will call the roll.
Counselor Corn?
Yes.
Counselor Foster?
Yes.
Counselor Arnold?
Yes.
Counselor Oropesa? Yes. Counselor Halverson?
Yes.
Counselor Hildenbrand?
Yes.
Counselor Best? Yes. Motion passes 7-0.
Okay. Next, we have the item 29, the consideration for the purchase of 75 body-worn cameras supplied by Axion Enterprise in the amount of $426,055.10. Councilman Corn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move adoption of the purchase 75 body-worn cameras supplied by Axion Enterprises in total amount of $426,055.10. And I'll yield to the officer, and he can give you the background on it.
It's just him. We have a second by Councilman Arnold, Council Lady Arnold.
Good evening, Mayor,
Okay.
City Council. Lieutenant Bradley at Roswell Police Department. So what we're proposing is the purchase of 75 body-worn cameras supplied by Axon Enterprises. July of last year, a law was passed into the state of New Mexico requiring all officers to wear body cameras when interacting with the public. Currently, we were using our cameras through a company called WatchGuard, who has since been bought out by Motorola. We had issues in the beginning phases of implementing these cameras to our officers, and ever since then, it's just been a snowball effect of failure with that company. At one point, we were down to 22 of our 74 supplied cameras, and at any given point in time had the potential of those going out as well. Luckily, we haven't been there, but they lack in customer support, and their ability to fix their equipment is absolute 100%. So with our Axon cameras, it's a 5-year contract. Year 1 and 2, with the total cost being around $75,000. 3, 4, and 5 being around $97,000 after that per year. It's a typo. It's actually going to be 75 cameras, not 74. Axon's customer support has been phenomenal. They flew out here and set up our entire system for us, showed us how they worked, showed us how to troubleshoot them. Anytime we've had issues with Axon, which we had prior to WatchGuard, they're there every single time, day or night, whenever we need them. We were able to reclaim our previous contract video footage from the years prior that we had already stored through their data system through evidence.com. We have the option at 2.5 years with Axon to upgrade to new equipment. They plan on coming out with a new body camera system within that time period, which we can upgrade to completely free, no cost to us whatsoever. These cameras are extremely reliable and hold us in compliance with our laws that have been implemented in New Mexico. And I stand for any questions.
Questions from members? No questions. Lieutenant, man, you're really going up.
Yes, sir.
But why 75? I mean, how many? We were looking at having more than 75 officers, or these are, I would assume that everybody should have to wear one, whether you be
Fully staffed, we're at 94, and the requirements for body-worn cameras are for those that are constantly on the streets, such as the patrol officers, our detectives, our narcotics agents. As far as the administration goes, we're not required to wear them at all times. So at 75, we're comfortable with that number. If we grow in numbers and we're allowed to have, eventually have more officers than that, we would look at the purchase to implement those to those officers as well. But at 75 right now, it's a very comfortable number.
Okay. Any further questions? Councilman Foster.
I was just going to make a statement. These cameras don't go home with our officers. They stay charging at the station, right?
So luckily, WatchGuard, you're correct. They would stay at the station. Axon has the capability of being plugged in at the officers' homes if they need to. It's a C-type cord that we would use on your Android. They can take it home and plug it in, such as detectives, if they're getting called out in the middle of the night, instead of having to go to the police station and get their camera, they have the ability to take them home and just leave straight from their house with their camera on them already.
Cool. Thank you. I yield.
Yes, sir.
Councilman Arnold.
Just a quick question. Considering the actual requirement coming from the state, is there any state funding that we've used or that's available to assist in this?
There is reimbursement for hardware, but not software. So the actual equipment, there is reimbursement options available, but as far as our data storage, no ma'am, not at all.
Is it on? Okay. No. Well, all right. Well, and do you have, with those cords, you could just plug those into your cigarette lighter then if you...
Any USB outlet, yes,
Yeah,
sir.
so you will have to buy cigarette lighters or cords or plugs or something for your cars, I guess.
Luckily, with the purchase of our upgraded fleet, most of our vehicles already have those in them already.
Okay.
If not, the computers that they carry in their vehicles have the USB adapter built into the computer that they could plug straight into, which also gives them the ability to upload their videos straight from that computer as well.
Okay, it sounds good. Okay, seeing no further comments, we have on a motion for approval from Councilman Corn and a second by Council Lady Arnold. All those, or the clerk will call the roll for item 29 on the approval of 75 body-worn cameras from Axion Enterprises.
Counselor Corn?
Yes.
Counselor Foster?
Yes.
Counselor Arnold?
Yes.
Counselor Oropesa?
Yes.
Counselor Halverson?
Yes.
Counselor Hildenbrand,
Yes.
Counselor Best. Yes. Motion passes 7-0.
Okay. Thank you. Next, we have for ordinances, proposed ordinance number 22-09. Consider the authorization to advertise or hold a public hearing on the ordinance 22-09, amending Chapter 6 of the City Code, incorporating by reference the 2021 New Mexico Uniform Mechanical Code and the Uniform Plumbing Code. Councilman Hildebrand.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I propose that we consider authorizing to advertise to hold a public meeting on the proposed ordinance 22-09, amending Chapter 6 of the Roswell City Code, incorporating by reference to the 2021 New Mexico Uniform Mechanical Code and Uniform Plumbing Code.
Do we have a motion by
I'll
Council?
second. Got your back.
We have a motion to approve ordinance 22-09 by Councilman Hildebrand and seconded by Councilman Arnold. Council Lady Arnold, are there any comments on, excuse me, Mr. Mavers?
I'm okay if you have no comments.
No, you want to?
Okay. No, it's a very simple housekeeping item. Every couple of years, the state of New Mexico updates the Uniform Mechanical Code, the Plumbing Code, the various building codes. We are required to, within 6 months of adoption by the state, we have to go ahead and hold our own hearings and adopt by reference these updated codes. What you're doing tonight, of course, is setting it for a full public hearing at the next meeting, and we'll take it up at that point. We'll actually managed to get it all done before the 6-month expiration date this time around.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor. Is there any discussion or questions from council? Seeing none, the clerk will call the roll for the approval by of proposed ordinance number 22-09, for amending Chapter 6 of the Roswell City Code by incorporating the reference of the 2021 New Mexico Uniform Mechanical Code and Uniform Plumbing Code. Clerk, call the roll.
Counselor Corn,
Yes.
Counselor Foster,
Yes.
Counselor Arnold. Yes. Counselor Oropesa. Yes. Counselor Halverson,
Yes.
Counselor Hildenbrand,
Yes.
Counselor Best. Yes. Motion passes 7-0.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next we have zoning case number 22-019. The plat, consider approval of the final plat for the Ruiz Mesa Park number 4 replat final to create 4 residential lots in the R3 residential district at 1000 West Jaffa Street. I don't know anybody would care to make a motion on that? We have.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion that we approve zoning case number 22-019.
And a second by Councilman Foster. That's probably in his district. Okay, we have a motion for approval. Mr. Mavers.
Again, Mr. Mayor and council members, this is a very simple little 4-lot subdivision here at the corner of South Union and West Jaffa. It's 2.3 acres that is being subdivided by the family that currently owns it in anticipation of future development. The intent of the proposed final plat, again, is to create 4 residential lots at 1001 West Jaffa. You have a copy of the proposed plat. It's very simple. I believe each one of the lots themselves is they're relatively equal in size, designed for the family to each take a piece of it and develop it over time. Prior to the June 2022 meeting, the Planning and Zoning Commission, we did receive 2 written protests and 2 in-person inquiries. The written protests, though, were over the zone change that went along with this. The zoning was amended from R1 to R3 because this corner just makes better sense to do a small multifamily type project rather than try to put single-family residential. They requested it. The Planning and Zoning Commission did approve the zone change. We have had no further contact. No other protests have been filed. Planning and Zoning Commission did recommend approval of the zoning case 22019F plat at their meeting on June 28th. And we would ask that you consider going ahead and adopting the final plat so the family can move forward with this development.
Now, that would be about at the corner of Union and Jaffa. Wouldn't that be about, what's the school right there?
There is a school to the north and
Monterey?
east of this site, yes.
Okay, I know where that is. That's what I was thinking. Yeah, so is there any comments, anyone in the audience or anyone care to make a comment? Seeing none, is there any comments from the council? Seeing none, then the clerk will call the roll on approving the zoning case number 22-019 and for the final plat for the Ruiz Mesa Park number 4 replat at 1001 West Jaffa Street. Clerk will call the roll.
Counselor Corn?
Yes.
Counselor Foster?
Yes.
Counselor Arnold?
Yes.
Counselor Oropesa? Yes. Counselor Halverson?
Yes.
Counselor Hildenbrand?
Yes.
And Counselor Best?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
I believe that completes our agenda that we have for all our real things. We have reports on departments. Do we have anybody going to make a report?
Mr. Mayor, the reports are in the packet as far as whichever ones that have been delivered for this.
Okay, do we have anyone under boards and commission that has any questions? No, we don't have any public participation left. We'd asked for that earlier. Mr. He wasn't here. Gomez, Jesse James Gomez, he was here earlier. I think he was on one of these lists, but anyway, for a non-agenda item, and he left. Okay, so future agenda items. I would just say, I think sometime we ought to relook, and we ought to have either relook or educate someone on the 70-30 plan or on all these things. I just have a hard time on charging citizens that get together in a group. When you get groups together of whether they be veterans or all groups walking for cancer or whatever, where you get every economic level together and every ethnicity level, to get those people together in one group, I think is beneficial for the city, in my opinion. So at some point in time, I would just tell you, I personally think that we should readdress that issue on charging for facilities. I know the fairgrounds have, I don't know, with the fire and the police, when the fair comes, there's 10,000 people out there in that fair, and it's the only time policemen and many firemen and stuff get to see people when it's not in a stressful situation. I would hope that sometime we would look at that and addressing it as well as for veterans. That's just a comment. So, Mr. Neeb, do you have any announcements or reports?
Mayor, City Council, just thank you for your service tonight and coming through the agenda with all that good work. The only item that I would add on to the list right now is that we have sent out via email a council survey, a focus survey. If you get an opportunity to look at that and fill that information out, I believe it's about 6 questions, very simple, in order to help staff focus on exactly what you want to focus on. And so I would ask if you get an opportunity to fill that information out, we'd greatly appreciate that. So other than that, again, thank you for that. We'll let you know if we hear anything on our other counselors as far as how everything's going. So thank you.
Okay. Is there anything else to come before us? It's with great anticipation. We're adjourned. Not too bad. Don't look at your watch.